Hello, and welcome to the Dusty Love Connection, where we explore the dusty, derelict, and downright dysfunctional dating habits of the most unproductive men, aka the Kangs, street name, Scam Trail, and his continental cousin, Scam Tunde. Hey, girl, hey. So, you all saw what was happening with the last live, so I'll wait for you guys to enter because StreamYards doesn't want me to be great, but I'm still going to be great. Hey, Jelly. Hopefully, everyone will trickle back in, and then I'll wait for Queen to come, and maybe we'll just have to do it like how we normally do it because I don't know, y'all. Like, I don't know why it was looping. Hey, Andrea. Yeah, StreamYard is on. It's not even on crack. It's on crocodile. That Russian drug. So I'm gonna drop the link because I wanted I wanted Queen to like co-host this with me. So no worries. Like I don't know what's going on with my YouTube. Like I don't really think it's been notifying like the subscribers, and that may be due to me like not regularly making videos. But so I don't know. I'm gonna wait for Queen to come up because like we wanted to double stream the live, but I don't know why it was really creepy. Hey, Andrea, and hello to anyone in the clouds. Hold on, let me get my information because I wrote a script on everything I wanted to talk about. Okay. So this evening's or yeah, this early afternoon, I don't know, whatever. We're going to talk about attachment theory and um, and how it pertains to Black women and how we can use attachment theory to navigate all forms of relationships. Um, hey, Tequila. Oh, I missed you. So I'll just wait a few minutes. Hopefully, Queen will come up soon and we'll get this party started. And then there's some other stuff I wanted to talk about. Well, before we get and start to the live stream. So what have you guys been doing? Like I'm back from my like I went on a staycation. I stayed in a nice hotel for like 4 days in the city. Like I just needed some like self care me time. I plan on going on like a real vacation soon. Okay, so hello and welcome to the Dusty Love Connection University, where we explore varying topics as it pertains to Black women. Today's topic of discussion is attachment theory and how we as Black women can identify our attachment styles and how they affect all forms of our adult relationships. I want to briefly discuss the history behind attachment theory so we can have like a general understanding of the theory. Attachment, let me hold on because I just want to show you guys. Just, I didn't really make any slides. Like I just wrote some dialogue. Let me share my screen. So, this is, I'm just going to pop that up there. right? And these, okay. Attachment theory's developmental history starts in the 1930s with John Bowlesby's growing interest in the link between maternal loss or deprivation and later personal development with Mary Ainsworth's interest in security theory. And for this presentation, we're going to primarily focus on Mary Ainsworth's research because I believe that that is the most influential. Bowlby formulated an initial blueprint of attachment theory, drawing on ethology, which is the study of human behavior and social organizations from a biological perspective. He also involved control system theories and psychoanalytical thinking. However, it was Mary Ainsworth who conducted the foundational observations with Black mothers and infants in Uganda. And I just need to clarify, attachment theory has never actually been studied in the African American community, right? So the opinions in this presentation are my own. I'm not a mental health professional, but like these are just how I think attachment theory pertains to specifically the Black American community. Because I'm a Black American, even though I'm of Haitian descent, don't come at me. So, however, it was Mary, and I already read that. What is missing from this work is the adequate attention to the unique context of African American families, a context that includes intergenerational trauma of slavery, the legacy of Jim Crow, ongoing racist policies that disproportionately harm families of color, and the daily experience of discrimination and the current Black Lives Matter movement. Because where I believe that attachment theory lacks is that it does not take into context all of the external factors that go into an individual's caregiving style. Because attachment theory states that how you were raised in your early infancy to toddler years is a direct correlation to how you interact in adult relationships. Okay, so attachment theory states that human infants evolved a tendency to form strong emotional bonds to caregivers, and that the function of such bonds is to increase proximity. Let me add Queen really quick. Right, it's to increase proximity to caregivers in the times of threat, and that such proximity is adaptive, right? Increasing an infant's probability of survival in the face of threats in their unique environment, right? So children learn different behaviors from how their caregiver responds to said behaviors, right? And these are a means of survival, because an infant's caregiver or caregivers, because in the Black community, oftentimes we have multiple caregivers that include extended family, our grandmothers, our aunts, cousins, and things of that nature. Whereas the original attachment theory only really studies the primary caregiver, like your mother and your father. And there's this universality claim in attachment theory that all human children need care and connection, and that these needs serve the goal of using a caregiver as a secure base to derive safety and comfort, right? As well as the confidence to explore the world. However, modern attachment theory no longer primarily focuses on the mother and looks at a network of caregivers and the hierarchy that an infant creates within those caregiving relationships, right? So say, for instance, with Black American children, oftentimes your mother, she's the head of the household, right? And so she may have other individuals that engage in your caregiving, right? And as an infant or as a child, you automatically create this sort of hierarchy, right? So if your grandmother was more hands-on than, say, your mother, because your mother had to work, then As an infant, you would look to your grandmother as your primary source of attachment, right? Because she's providing more so your day-to-day needs, where your mother is busy trying to take care of your financial needs or your domicile needs. And also, attachment theory's central claim is that infants form these strong attachments to one or more caregivers, and this is regardless in the modern form of attachment theory. This is regardless of your culture, right? And as we are children, we develop these behaviors, but they change in form. So some examples would be like when an infant is crying, right? And they reach to a caregiver when distressed, right? That's like an initial, that's a very like general form of attachment, right? And then as you become a teen, it may be texting your parents for help, right? But as you become an adult, that attachment to your parents is still there, but it's not quite as strong. So when you become an adult, you're more likely to reach out to your friends or your partner for help, right? So you're mimicking the attachment styles from infancy all the way up into your adulthood. And our attachment styles are formed in infancy, and they revolve around the relationship or lack thereof of our supposed caregivers. And this affects all forms of relationships. When you look at primarily attachment theory, a lot of the research in attachment theory focuses on your romantic partner, but there's been upcoming research about how not only it affects like your romantic partner, it reflects platonic relationships, it affects work relationships, and it ultimately affects how you treat yourself. And so we've had this, this is a very brief history on the development of attachment theory. If you want a more in-depth, I can share with you some research, some resources, and there's several people on YouTube. I recommend Dr. Kim Sage. If you want to really, really delve into your attachment style and healing your inner child, like she's a wonderful, wonderful resource. I love her channel. Okay. And so we as human beings have this universal tendency to form close relationships, and the variation in caregiving behaviors shape our individual difference in how attachments are organized. Attachment theory states that children learn to calibrate their attachment via adaptive strategies for getting their needs for proximity and connection met. So like children learn very early on the behaviors that they need to engage in to get the things that they want or the things that they need, right? And this is just like habits that we've evolved for survival as infants. And they say that children who experience children who experience consistent, reliable, and responsive care in times of need learn that they can rely on a secure base with confidence and develop a secure attachment. So if you have a child whose parents are actively involved with them, not only physically, but emotionally, that child grows up thinking and learning that people can be trusted. And they're confident that when they seek out help, that someone will be there for them because that's the environment in which they've grown up in. Right? So the first form of attachment theory that we're going to talk about is the secure attachment. Secure attachment is characterized, I always get this word wrong. I always pronounce it incorrectly. Autonomous, yes, autonomous. I always say autonomous for some reason. Listen, I got a jacked up accent. Exploration. So they're engaging in open and direct expression of their attachment needs. So this is an individual who can set boundaries and has expectations. And where have we heard these words from other than Cynthia G? Because securely attached individuals, they have an expectation for the people that they're in relationships with, whether it be romantic or platonic, and they can easily set boundaries, right? Because in their childhood, their parents allowed them to set those boundaries, and their parents taught them that they should have expectations that relationships are reciprocal. And also, someone that is securely attached can self-soothe. And what I mean by self-soothing, I mean that's the regulation of your central nervous system. So, like when you get upset and you're enraged, instead of slapping the shit out of someone, you can calm yourself down and you can pivot that anger in a manner where your partner can understand where you're coming from and they can sympathize and empathize with you, right? You can easily express how you're feeling in a way that is conducive to maintaining your relationship. And also the regulation of their emotion, they can regulate their emotions when distressed. And they have this expectation that others will be responsive and helpful. Securely attached infants grow up to be adults capable of forming lasting relationships. Well, let me put my phone on mute. My sister blowing me up with memes. um, the caregiver greatly influences how a child attaches, and parents need to create a passionate environment and have the ability to regulate their own emotional reactions, right? So oftentimes, if you grow up with a securely attached parent or caregiver, you too will be securely attached. So how your primary or your primary caregivers were raised is going to greatly affect their parenting skills, right? And securely attached children grow up to be better able to maintain their unique sense of identity while being connected to others. They're often self-assured, direct, and responsive. Securely attached individuals are more skilled at regulating their emotions due to the fact that their caregivers were sensitive to their needs growing up. And this attuned parental attitude demonstrates to the child that emotions are valid and worth talking about. Right? That's the key point to growing up to being a securely attached person. And this is not to say because if you're not securely attached right now, you can become securely attached. There are CBT therapy. So don't worry that just because you didn't grow up in this environment, this doesn't mean that you could never become a securely attached individual. I would go so far as to say that most Black/African descent children aren't taught that their emotions are valid or worth speaking about, because more often than not, it's seen as just disrespect for a child to earnestly voice their opinions in a Black household. There's this idea that a child should stay in a child's place, right? And Black children really aren't seen as their own people with their own feelings. And this greatly jeopardizes our ability to form secure attachments. And if you're a little Black girl and you're not given the space to feel the full range of emotions and to be able to express those emotions openly and freely without being punished, like this strengthens the idea that our voices don't matter. So like Black parents are doing a disjustice not only to little Black girls, but to little Black boys as well, when you're not allowing them to fully feel those emotions. Like allow your child to be mad and talk to them and try to understand why they're upset, right? You have to foster this space that allows them to be completely human. And also, furthermore, what I find to be lacking from this attachment style in regard to Black women is how environmental stressors such as discrimination, racism, being the sole caregiver and financial provider can affect a parent's emotional state and how they interact with their child, right? So if you have a mom that's working 12 hours a day, when she comes home, she's probably not as engaged with you as she could be. And that's no fault of her own because she's out here slaving away, trying to take care of you financially. I don't believe that most Black mothers are intentionally neglecting the emotional needs of their children. I, I believe that a lot of Black women don't even know how to handle their own emotional needs, right? So there's this generational trauma that's being passed down from mother to child or father, because we don't have the same, we're not growing up in these sorts of environments where our mothers or our caregivers have the space to heal themselves, and then when they're healed, they can be better parents, right? Black women have a lot on their plate. And I just feel like we need to learn to give Black women grace, right? But at the same time, I feel like Black women, we have to really, really focus on our own emotional state because it can be very damaging to our children. All right. So yeah, it's like I really feel like until attachment theory explores a lot of the environmental stressors that Black American women, and when I say Black American, I mean Black women who live in America, like that's just the term that I'm using. Until that, I do not believe that attachment theory is complete with regards to Black women. And okay, so as I was saying, like I don't believe that Black women can't become securely attached individuals. I just think that more often than not, we're not being raised in these textbook securely attached environments, right? Because we tend to have multiple caregivers, and with each of these caregivers, there's going to be a different parenting style, right? So you might have an aunt who's more, you might have an aunt that's a more carefree Black woman, right? She might be more spiritually attuned. You might go over to her house. She might teach you how to meditate. She might have crystals. Like you have this auntie that she tries to foster, your emotional well-being. And then you may have a grandmother who's very strict, right? She's no nonsense. And that's because she grew up in a totally different time. And then you may have a mother who is dealing with her own issues. And while she's responsive and present, she may not be meeting all of your emotional needs. So there's a lot of different parenting styles that Black children are being raised under, right? And as a child, it may be hard for you to rectify all of this because our community looks completely different than everyone else's. So the current data states that parents are only actually attuned to their children 30% of the time. And when I delve deeply into the data on this, most of the mothers were stay-at-home mothers, which more often than not, we as Black women aren't afforded that opportunity to be stay-at-home mothers because we're single mothers. Even when you're married, most Black women are still actively in the workforce. And then you also have absentee fathers not picking up the caregiving slack. So Black women tend to have a lack of a stable support system to create these genuinely securely attached children per the guidelines of attachment theory. So in order for Black women to become securely attached adults, we have to examine our beliefs about relationships. And we also need to no longer engage in relationships where our needs and boundaries aren't met. You aren't securely attached, sis, if you don't have boundaries and you don't have expectations of the people that you're in these relationships with. And I'm talking about whether it's romantic or platonic, right? Because we as Black women oftentimes extend ourselves too far for people who would never do the same in return. I believe that Black women have this people-pleasing spirit, right? And I'm not even gonna lie, because like I used to be a people pleaser. And I think that from what I understand with people pleasing behaviors is that you're doing so because you want these people to see your value. And we see this is rampant throughout the diaspora of Black women going into spaces where Black men are denigrating them, and they're trying so hard to prove their value. Sis, if you securely attached, whatever these people say about you has no matter. It does not matter. It doesn't. And until we can get to a point where our self-image, our self-worth, and our confidence comes solely from within, we will never be securely attached individuals, right? We must surround ourselves with like-minded individuals. And we also need to stop dating down, and we need to stop dating potential, right? Because in doing so, you're opening the doors to people in your life that aren't securely attached, right? And they're only going to drag you down. And so for me personally, like I try, like my friend group is a direct reflection of myself. And those are the sorts of relationships that we as Black women need to start embodying, right? And I'm not saying like, because I'm not an elitist. Like I hang out with, when I say I hang, the people that I hang out with are a reflection of myself. Like these are women whose personalities are like we vibe on like a deep personal level, right? Because I have friends that have never been to college. I have friends that have children. I have friends that are married. But at the core of all of these friendships, like our morals and how we interact are relatively the same, right? Because the old saying, birds of a feather flock together. And also, as a securely attached individual, you learn to be able to minimize stressors, right? Because stress can worsen attachment issues. This is particularly true of relationship related turmoil. So like if you're a securely attached person and then you get with someone, because we as Black women, we're always like, oh, this person, and I'm talking from a romantic relationship point of view, we're always like, oh, he has potential, right? But the thing is if you are an accomplished Black woman and you're dating you're dating down, or you're involved with someone that you say, quote unquote, has potential, what you're doing is you're opening the door for relationship related turmoil, which is like frequent arguments. And then oftentimes in this relationships, you're the one who has to be proactive in addressing the conflict before it escalates. Because if you're dating down as a securely attached individual, right, the person that you're with doesn't know how to self-regulate based on attachment theory, right? Or they have difficulty self-regulating. And by self-regulation, I mean like calming and pivoting their emotions. Like someone that's not securely attached, when they get angry, they may explode. right? So if your partner can engage in calming or de-escalation activities, like, you need to get up out of that relationship, because it's just going to get worse. And then eventually it's going to affect your attachment style. You're going to go from a securely attached individual to maybe an ambivalent slash anxious, avoidant. I don't think you would be so much as, well, you could be disorganized, because I don't know what could be happening in that relationship. There's a lot of different things that could go on, right? And securely attached people tend to prioritize their own needs. And they're also able to identify toxic relationship dynamics. And this is where I think that my own opinion is that a lot of us as Black women aren't securely attached. Because if we were, the relationship dynamics throughout the diaspora would look completely different. And I don't want to say that we as Black women are falling short. I believe that we're taught to ignore our own feelings and prioritize others over ourselves, particularly Black men. Securely attached people don't engage in these, don't engage in this at all. Because if you were to look at other communities, right? Although women from other communities face some of the same issues that we're facing, they don't face them at the extent at which we do. And also, I've never really seen, I mean, there's male identified women and misogynistic women in all races. But I feel like Black women's level of misogynoir it's frightening. It's frightening. Like, I've seen it from continental African women. I've seen it from my own women and Haitian women. I've seen it from Caribbean women, Black American women, Afro-European women. Like, it's this underlining misogynoir that is like really seeped into Black women's mentality, right? I think we're so used to misogynoir that we engage in it almost unconsciously, right? And so the environment of the Black diaspora doesn't center Black women's needs, making it almost impossible for us to develop security in our attachment styles, right? And that's not to say that there are Black women that grow up in securely attached environments where their needs are fostered. I do believe that there are a few of us who grow up in those environments, but I would say that the majority of us, I don't think so, because if so, we would be acting completely differently as adults, right? And your attachment style is greatly influenced by how your caregiver was raised, and the trauma they may have experienced can greatly affect how they parent. And we all know that as Black women, we carry a lot of emotional trauma. And if we don't want our children to face these same sorts of issues, because we are the sole caregivers, we have to really, really take an active role in healing our emotional wounds, right? Because I believe that all Black women want the best for their children, right? Black women aren't birthing children thinking, oh, fuck them kids, right? I feel as though Black women are doing the best with the resources they have on hand. But even if you can't afford therapy or like it's out of your reach, there's free resources online. You can buy CBT therapy books. You can buy all sorts of different journaling. There's so many things, so many resources that are relatively inexpensive that we now have access to, and we have to take full control over our emotional awareness, right? And so, furthermore, even when a Black or an African descent female child is fostered within a secure parent-child relationship, they still face conflict from racism or misogynistic messaging from the larger society of not mattering, right? And that's where I think attachment theory falls short, because young Black girls face a whole host of different environmental stressors than other Black children. I read a study not too long ago that stated young Black children, like little Black girls, are viewed as adults as early as like 5 to 7 years old. And what really hit this home for me is I was watching a short popped up in my feed, and it was a 6-year-old little Black girl, cute as a little button. She was playing out in the front yard, and her mother, like they live in an apartment, and her mother had like the sliding, like they lived on the first floor. So her mother had the sliding glass door open, but she was inside cleaning the house and like letting her daughter play in the little front yard area. This white Hispanic man tried to kidnap her, but the little girl bit him, and then she kicked him in the genitals, and he threw her to the ground. And she ran in and told her mother what happened, and her mother called the police. They caught the man because, license plate tracking and all of that. Excuse me. But what really pissed me off in this short was that the arresting officer referred to this 6-year-old as a young woman. She's 6. There is nothing womanly about her. And then when I made the comment that the adultification of little Black girls needs to stop because it does more harm than good, it was a troglodyte came out of the woodworks like they usually do. She crawled her ass up out the caves to say, oh, he probably didn't know what he was. I was like, how did he not know? He's the arresting officer. It disgusts me that little Black girls' childhoods are being ripped from them in this society. It's disgusting. But I just went off on a tangent. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, so also what I was saying was lacking from attachment style studies is how racial pride and sex-specific representations and racial identity play into secure attachment, right? So little Black girls, I guess, even recently, when you think about it, securely attached people look to the media and other representations of themselves also outside of their caregivers to solidify how they feel about themselves. And we all know that little Black girls lack sex-specific representations on the grand scale, right? So we as Black women, we have to provide that representation for them. We need to show little Black girls what it looks like to be confident, what it looks like to be self-assured. And even if you don't have children, right? We all encounter little Black girls out and about. And so I like to think of myself as a role model. Like I have nieces. So like, I feel like I'm a role model to them. And when I see little Black girls out and about in public, I always compliment them. Like I always let them know that they're pretty. Like I'll pivot to their, who they're with, their mother first, because I'm not just walking up talking to random children. That's creepy. But like, I feel like as Black women, we have to do this for little Black girls because no one else is going to. Like it takes a village. And we also need to instill in them racial pride, because I know from a very young age, like I grew up hearing like little Black boys making fun of little Black girls and things of that nature. And that, if you start hearing that from a very young age, like that's going to greatly affect your self-confidence later on in life. And people can say whatever they want to, but your youth or your formative years, right? These are the years where your personality type is forming, and how you engage or how you respond to conflict. Like all of this is being absorbed and learned in our childhood. And your attachment style also correlates to your self-esteem and self-image, right? So it's safe to assume that securely attached individuals have high levels of self-esteem, right? I would go just like I I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, but I feel like a lot of Black women suffer from low self-esteem due to the trauma and treatment we face in the Black community from an early age, and also due to the adultification we face in society. And so for Black women, I think in order for us to become securely attached, we have to actively examine every single relationship that we engage in and how it affects us, right? We also need to evaluate how those we associate with show up for us and the benefit that these relationships offer us. Right? We as Black women need to stop entering into non-reciprocal relationships. They do us more harm than good. It just doesn't work out. You cannot love someone. You can't be in a relationship and be like, I'm going to show this person so much love that eventually they'll love me. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And I feel like oftentimes we as Black women engage in those sorts of relationships. I mean, I've been there, done that, right? And I've learned from that. And I hope that you too could also learn from that as well. So now we're going to jump into the ambivalent attachment style, which is also known as anxious, right? And this is the second attachment style, is due to misattuned and inconsistent parenting. And with this form of attachment, appreciation, attention, and support are the focal points, right? This form of attachment stems from caregivers' inconsistency of parenting style, right? So you may have had a caregiver that was supportive and responsive to your needs, and then at other times they were misattuned to the child, right? And these inconsistencies in parenting styles make it difficult for the child to understand the caregiver's behaviors. A major factor in this attachment style is emotional hunger. I think that most Black women are anxious. That's just my own 2 cents. And once we delve into this and I open up, like we can all speak about it further. And so the caregiver is often seeking emotional, physical closeness with the child in order to satisfy their own needs rather than their children, right? So you may have a parent, or an example of this would be, because I've heard women say things like, oh, I'm going to have a baby so I can have someone to love me unconditionally. Right? So they're putting their own needs, their own emotional needs, their own emotional hunger above that of the child, right? And this isn't to say that your parent isn't there for you or loves you or doesn't love you, right? But the relationship is more about soothing their own emotional hunger, right? And I think we also see this in the way Black women treat their male sons, right? they coddle, they baby them, because the emotional hunger of having a male partner, right, isn't being met. So you think the next best thing is the love of your son. And that's not to say that all Black women engage in this, but I think the greater Black female population, we do, because like the Black male worship is rampant. Um, I for me, I think this speaks to how Black women view motherhood and this deep need to be loved and appreciated, right? And I'm not saying that all Black mothers engage in this behavior, but I think that it may be unconscious. I believe that it's mostly unconscious. Like I think it's mostly more leaning towards unconscious than it is a conscious decision to do to engage in these sorts of behaviors. Um, and I think this is a response to how Black women are treated, not only in the Black community, but in society at large. And so we are we're using our children to fill an emotional void, right? This attachment style it also involves a caregiver that's intrusive and overprotective, right? And they also feel the need to present themselves in a certain light, right? So you see this with how Black girls are reared, right? Um, your parents may be overprotective. They may not let you do anything. They don't let you engage in. They won't let you have a boyfriend. Which my thinking is, I believe that at a certain age, I think that little Black girls need to be able to date so that they can have the experience in how relationships are supposed to operate, right? We're setting our young girls up for failure if we're like, no, you can't date until you're 18. Like, they need to know how they want to be treated and what sort of treatment is appropriate. And if even if that meant like allowing them to go to the movies and you're there, like you could do this, you could chaperone a date. But I think it's important that little Black girls learn how to engage with the male sex, right? And so yeah, like there's this whole where your caregiver is at times responsive to your needs, but they're intrusive, right? And they're overly protective, and they also want to present themselves as in a certain light. So I don't know about y'all, but growing up, like if I did anything wrong, my mother would love to hop on the phone and tell like my aunts about the behavior I was engaging in, even though it was just normal childlike behavior, right? So we learn very early on that our emotions and our behaviors they become attached to like shame. Or if you're a little Black girl and you develop a bit quicker than the other ones, right? Your parents will tell you, oh, put some clothes on, or people be like, she's fast because she's got big breasts and big hips and wide hips at 13. It's like they're constantly this forcing of adult qualities onto young girls that generally don't exist. Because I mean, I wouldn't know what it looked, because I mean, I'm tall and skinny, but like at 11 and 10, because I had a cousin that like she's shaped like a brick house and she's been shaped like that all her life. And I remember when we were like 12 and 13, like she would wear like 3 sports bras to pin her chest down and all of this stuff, because the women in my family would be like, oh, she's fast, or speed, like Asian people call it speed. But and I always felt like And I remember me and her having these conversations, and she always felt shame behind her body, right? And this cousin later on went to develop a eating disorder. So like, I really need Black women to really think about the things that we're saying to our female children, right? And your male children. Because these can have long-standing effects on them. Right? And this sort of parenting is rampant, right, throughout the Black African diaspora. This forced adultification on Black girls, and even I go so far to say as little Black boys too, as not being seen as children. We're often looked at and treated as little women, and we're not given the room to make adolescent and prepubescent mistakes, right? And what you see with anxiously attached individuals, they are highly sensitive and attuned to their partner's need, but often unsure and anxious about their own worth in a relationship, right? And we see this with Black women putting Black men's needs above their own, whether it be financial, emotional, what have you, right? Black women will bend over backwards to help a Dusty raise himself up out the dust. And she will not expect anything in return because we've been trained to think that that's our role. It's not, sis. It's not. You as an adult woman, your only responsibility is to yourself. And if you have children, to your children. No one else. No one else. Right? And we also see this in Black women's constant need to uplift those that don't reciprocate and putting the needs of the community before their own safety and security. We have Black women sitting online, right? Because they're anxiously attached and they think that by agreeing with Black men, somehow that elevates their self-worth and value. It don't. You just look like a fool. Like that, I believe that most of us are anxiously attached. It says, it says as if I didn't write this to myself. Also, we see that if the loved one rejects them or fails to respond to their needs, they tend to blame themselves as not being worthy of love. I think this shows up in the negative self-talk Black women engage in online and the constant need to align themselves with misogynoir, right? Because if you were a self-assured and confident woman, you wouldn't be on here agreeing that Black women are masculine and Black women are this and Black women are that and Black women, Black women, Black women, Black women. You wouldn't. You wouldn't go on these podcasts and sit there and allow them to degrade you in your face. You also wouldn't send these men cash apps. I don't send men money, and neither should you. It's disgusting. We see this all across varying forms of social media with these supposed femininity coaches and male podcasters speaking about how Black women aren't worthy of reciprocal relationships and how we as Black women somehow lack feminine qualities. This just further reinforces this anxious style of attachment because why are Black women so open to listen to this degradation? Like, why are you sitting amongst these men? And I think that the reason you're sitting amongst these men is because of your attachment style. And see, generally adults with this attachment style need constant reassurance that they are loved, worthy, and good enough. This fear leads them to become desperate and clingy and preoccupied with relationships. Tell me I haven't just talked about the entire Black female community. You can't say I haven't, because it's all over the internet. It's all over the internet. Our relationship dynamics reflect it. How we engage with Black men on the internet reflects it. It's this, we anxiously attached, sis. We really are. I also believe this translates to Black women staying in relationships that don't serve them, right? Because we have Black women who sit online and espouse all of this stuff about, oh, well, you're not married. Oh, you don't have a man, blah, 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 right? Because anxiously attached people, they only found value in their proximity to whomever they're in a relationship with. They find security in being in proximity, even though their needs aren't being met. Right? And we see this in Black women's marriages. Black women out here getting cheated on, beaten on. They're financially floating the entire family. But then you'll hop online and be like, oh, I love my husband. Oh, my man, my man. Since that man ain't shit. Based on the data. No. Like, we're seeking out intimacy and closeness in relationships where we're not even getting it. Right? And then we're also judging our self-worth based on these relationships where we're not receiving intimacy or closeness. It don't even make sense. Because with an anxiously attached individual, the mere presence of the loved one appears to be the remedy for the strong emotional needs, right? Even though they may not be meeting any other need. And they're not really meeting your emotional needs. It's just the fact that they're there, and you think that because they're there, they love you, even though they're showing a whole host of behaviors that show they don't care about you. Right? Black women and our constant need to center the men in our lives, even when these men aren't emotionally present and the relationship isn't reciprocal. That's one of the key factors in being anxiously attached. This is us, sis. This is us. And this isn't to say that we can't change it, because we most certainly can. But the first step is to recognize the things that you're doing in relationships and how it's affecting you, and then pivoting to change that, right? And it may not be something that you can do overnight, but it's something that you need to rectify this attachment style, because it's only harming you in the end. This attachment style is tiring because it creates anxiety and stress, unhappiness, and low life satisfaction. Anxious individuals are often insecure about where they stand in a relationship and whether their partner loves them as much as they do. I believe this is why we as Black women so easily fall into one-sided relationships. We are emotionally starved. And we think that by getting a man, because that's what society and the patriarchy has taught us, right? That if you get a man, all your problems will be solved. Girl, these men are bringing more problems. Just be single. I mean, I'm not gonna say just be single, because if you want to find a man, go out there and do it. But sis, you've got to take all of this into context. We have to stop with these one-sided relationships, right? We're setting bad examples for our daughters, for our nieces, for our little female cousins. Like, we're setting them up for failure, because if they see us engaging in these relationships, they too will think that this is okay. And it's not. I don't know. Queen, did you want to jump in here anywhere?
Hey sis, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I think you're hitting a lot of the points, to be honest. There was something that you said earlier that I just wanted to touch on a bit more when it came to what you were saying in regards to the people pleasing mentality when it comes to black women. I think it's often something that we grow up seeing internally and externally in regards to our caregivers, in regards to the women that are within our support network of our caregivers,
Yep.
and the way that they respond to societal pressures, as well as the programming that comes through the patriarchy, which you are touching on. Because a lot of the times we're not taught about self preservation, we're taught about putting others first. We're taught about, as women, taking pleasure from caring for your quote unquote husband, your quote unquote spouse, your children, from doing things within the community, and that's where you're supposed to get your fulfillment from. Otherwise, there's something wrong with you when that's the male perspective of how a woman should be. And I think that plays a big role subconsciously into the different elements of the things that you're talking about when it comes to sibling relationships, parental relationships, um, even when it comes to things like how we're taught about the black tax, how we're taught about, having to work 3 times harder than others in order to get to the same place. The way that we try to people please when it comes to our bosses in taking on extra work over other people, or not feeling the confidence or self esteem to say no in those situations when people are putting external pressures on you. Do you hear what I mean? Whether that's family, whether that's friends, so I do think the whole thing around standards, boundaries, and expectations is really, really important moving forward. And just truly what's been going on in these YouTube streets, it really, really shows that, there is like, with some women, emotional starvation. And I'm always saying to parents, you've got to um, build their confidence and self esteem. Otherwise, they're going to go looking for love in the wrong places. And I see a lot of that at the moment, women looking for love in the wrong places because of the attention. This is both men and women, because of the love and attention that they didn't receive at home. I do think, in regards to what you were saying when it comes to the way that we're raising little girls and the adultification of little girls, it reminded me of this clip that I saw on TikTok, where it was like, it had this stint to do with racism. And yeah, there's an element of racism in it, but what it really showed to me, and let me explain what the clip was. It was basically two examples of how children are treated. So there was a clip with a little black girl who was basically on her own. Nobody took any interest in her. Nobody was watching her to observe whether she was with a parent or not. Nobody cared. And then they did another clip with a little white girl on her own, and the amount of people that were coming up to the little white girl to check that she was okay, asking where her parents was. Do you get what I mean? So it showed for me also on a societal level how much we ignore and don't pay attention to black little girls. Do you get what I mean? But at the same time, the adultification of pushing them into this adult mindset really, really early. So I can understand why there's different contradictions and hypocrisy when it comes to black women. We're dealing with a collective of males that also have contradiction and hypocrisy. And we become, what is it? Not retroactive, but the way that we react to those different situations um, plays out in different ways. I think the other thing is in regards to what you were saying earlier when it comes to taking into consideration children's feelings and our children setting boundaries, standards, and expectations with us, to do with their own emotional safety. I think that's really, really important. Us reparenting ourselves, unlearning what I consider to be some of the generational curses that can continue to plague us within our parenting styles. The physical discipline and the things that we're seeing that are happening, and understanding that those things don't work. Do you know what I mean? It creates more dynamics of feeling unsafe, feeling exploited in different ways, feeling shamed, and leaves the door open for vulnerability in other places for predators to come in. So I do think it's really important for parents to create a safe space for their children to be able to come to them, to talk to them about things, even the things that we're uncomfortable about, and even just expressing to our children sometimes that, we are human too, that we make mistakes. There's nothing wrong in things like apologizing for things that you've done wrong. I think that shows a sign of growth, of evolution in handling things better and being more open, and in some ways less judgmental. Like you were saying about, when kids make mistakes, the way that sometimes we can come down so hard on them and forgetting that they're actual children, and that children are going to make mistakes. And, it takes time for them to learn these things, and things can get repetitive and arduous. At the same time, that's what's necessary for their brains sometimes to digest these things. Do you get what I'm saying? But I really think if if we start really looking at the way that our parenting styles, our techniques are, and changing some of those things, it can help create a better relationship between parents and children, in being able to be more open. Not only that, but in your children feeling more safe in your presence in different ways. And it will help create more sensitive children, in different levels, emotionally, physically, and mentally. But I think that's also a good thing societally, if we really pay attention to what their needs are. And things like the counseling, that I'm on that. I say to parents all the time that now that I've come to understand that guidance counselors aren't the best, because I suppose the English view of sort of watching TV and watching films is that you've got these great guidance counselors in school that add different types of therapeutic and educational value. But in understanding a bit more of the school system, it doesn't seem like that's happening. So I feel like it's our duty as parents to get our children introduced to counseling, introduced to therapy, and starting them off really, really young, so they have a safe environment outside of us if they don't still feel able to come to us. And and somebody who's trained, do you get what I mean, that can navigate them securely. But please, always do your background checks on these counselors and these therapists, especially with everything that's going on now with these predators trying to get into different places where children exist.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you said. Okay, so we'll delve back into this. Is one way to heal an insecure attachment style is to make sense of the way you interact with your loved ones, um, especially your partner. Recognizing your behavioral patterns and relationships and being self-reflective is important, right? You also have to analyze and make sense of your childhood experiences and how they've impacted you as an adult. Like realizing that past experiences do not have to affect or predict your present and future. I think that'll make it easier for Black women to break free from these established behavioral patterns and habits, right? So we have to be self-reflective, and like I'm going like journaling and really asking yourself why you do the things that you do, like why you're engaging in this behavior, right? Like we have to sit with ourselves and figure out, why do we keep getting into non-reciprocal relationships? Why do you go to these platforms and listen to these men that are degrading you, right? Why are you seeking out this sort of information? Like, what purpose does this sort of content or these sorts of behaviors, like what purpose do they serve? Like we have to ask ourselves those questions, right? And I can honestly say, like, I believe that if there wasn't like an attachment style, like I would say that I at one point in my life, like I was anxiously attached, right? Um, or I had elements of this attachment style, right? Because I suffered from low self-esteem, from some things that had happened to me in my life or whatever. And then on top of that, like having an autoimmune disorder, there was like, and until like I really actively looked at how I was treating myself and how I was showing up for myself, like I was able to get out of these behavioral patterns, right? Like I go to therapy. I have a CBT journal, which is cognitive behavioral therapy that I engage in. I see my therapist. Well, I used to see her every 2 weeks. Like sometimes I see her every 2 weeks when I'm going through a lot of stuff because things tend to bubble up. But right now I'm just going like once a month. And I know that some people like therapy isn't in reach of all people, but there are tons and tons of resources out here. It's just like we've got to get healed. Like we really really need to, because in the long run, it's just these being anxiously attached is a silent killer. Like your cortisol levels, your health, all of these things come into play with your attachment style, because when you're anxiously attached, you don't know how to properly self-regulate. You don't know how to control your central nervous system. Like all of these things that can help you to become a better you, like you don't have the ability to do these things because how you're attached and how you're showing up in relationships. Right? So the third attachment style is avoidant. And this attachment style um, is developed when your caregiver really isn't there emotionally, right? And that's not to say that the caregiver neglects the child, but they're not emotionally present, right? So you may have a caregiver that is reserved and backs off when the child reaches out for support or reassurance or affection. The caregivers are likely to become more distant as the situation becomes more emotionally intense, right? And with speaking to a lot of like my first or second generation African friends, I feel like a lot of them are have this avoidant attachment style because they grow up in these households where like affection really isn't like a big deal. And I think like affection in a lot of black homes is like on the back burner. It's about I provide you with a place to live. I put clothes on your back and I put food on the table, right? And that's not to say that those things aren't important, because they are, but a child's emotional needs are just as important, right? So when the child expresses a need for closeness, the caregiver doesn't provide it, right? Um, and like I said, emotional closeness is often replaced with the child's very basic needs. And so what happens in this attachment style is that the child learns to avoid expressing their own feelings, right? The child perceives that they're basic and like even though you may be feeding, clothing, and doing all of that, the child perceives that their basic needs and their emotional needs aren't being met, right? Because as a child, like the way you interpret your surroundings is a bit different, right? Um, because you are still a child, so you're not you don't fully understand all of your emotions, and you may not fully understand why your parent is acting the way that they're acting. So you learn that, well, the best thing for me is to not show emotion. And so an individual that is avoidant has a very, very hard time trusting people. And they view social bonds as not safe, not stable. Like these are the people that are like, I don't need nobody. And also, a child who grows up in this environment, they learn very early on that their caregiver disapproves or does not tolerate any display of emotion from them. Like your child, like this child is robotic, right? And when displays of emotion do occur, the caregiver tends to become angry and tries to disrupt the child's behavior by telling the child to toughen up. Or what's an adage we hear in the Black community? I'll give you something to cry about. Right? I heard that growing up all the time. Like, I'm highly sensitive. I'd go so far to say I'm a crybaby. And my mother would always be like, I'll give you something to cry about. And so I was just like, okay, let me go in my room and leave this lady alone. I love my mama to death. But like when I look back on my childhood, like there's, even though like I was afforded a lot of opportunities that other Black children weren't, at the same time, like I feel like there was this lack of emotional closeness, right? Growing up, like, and I'd say that was from my mother and my father. Like, they're generally just cold people. Like, I know my parents love me, but they just have cold personalities. So like in this like caregivers or parents, they basically expect their child to behave independently. And this basically strips the child of their childhood, right? Because at an early age, the child learns they can't rely on anyone. They have to do everything for them. They think they have to do everything for themselves. And they just learn that I can't trust anyone because they're not going to respond to me positively. And this attachment style is often passed on unintentionally, right, to the next generation because caregivers are more likely to show their behaviors. They're also children who grow up and have this attachment style more often than not either have parents or caregivers that are very young. And it also stated that the caregiver may have untreated mental health issues. I think this attachment style is being inadvertently pushed across social media, right? Because what we're seeing is Black men are saying to impregnate young Black girls, completely ignoring the ramifications that becoming a young mother, more often than not, in the diaspora, these women are left to rear their children alone, right? And so this is that whole bitter Black woman trope, right? I feel like the Black women that fall into this category, like a lot of them, I feel like these sorts of women feel like their freedom or youth has been ripped from them, right? And so, not saying that they don't want to be parents, they're resentful of having to be parents, even though they step up to the mantle of parenthood, right? But they do it with disdain. That I'm quoting one of Queen's live streams. Yeah, so let me see. I just lost my pace.
It's okay, sis. Take your time.
I said, okay, so in my opinion, I think that this is also another rampant attachment style in the rearing of Black girls. We're taught to be strong, independent, reliable, and we're taught to be all of these things, right? As we are the least protected demographic in America. I go so far as to say in the world, right? So you're telling Black women, be strong, be independent, be reliable, while the community is telling you you ain't shit, you never gonna be shit, and I don't have to provide shit for you. Like the communication, like you're getting mixed signals here. And so people with this attachment style tend to disregard their own struggles and needs in order to maintain peace with the caregiver. And I think that this avoidant attachment style is also rampant in the Black community because Black women, we ignore the things that are being done to us, like femicide, SA, all of these things, in order to keep peace. What we think will be keeping peace in the Black community, or not upsetting the Kangs, right? We actively engage in this sort of not all Black men, not all this, and no, it's some good Black men. Sis, fuck out of here. Like, it's not. It's like it's more degenerates than there are good Black men. And avoidance learn very early on to neglect their struggles, neglect their needs, because they have to maintain the peace. Like, they have to maintain the peace. And we see this also in how young Black girls are basically, like, this is outside of like relationships, but like growing up, we hear things like where Black girls are basically supposed to protect their own innocence, right? Where you have relatives, your mom might say, put on some clothes because some men cousins are coming over, or like you're taught that you have to protect yourself and no one else is going to, right? When that shouldn't be the case. You're a child. You shouldn't have to protect yourself. There should be a system of protection around you. But we see that that doesn't exist for us, right? And this need to protect the peace or maintain peace is on full display with how Black women worship Black men and ignore the blatant disrespect that's being hurled at us both online and in real life, right? We learn at a very early age that feelings and emotions, specifically our own feelings and emotions, are irrelevant. And avoidant Black women, or avoidant people in general, they struggle and feel anxiety and sadness because they deny the importance of those feelings, right? So although you may be feeling sad and depressed, you won't allow yourself to fully sit with those feelings and work through those feelings. You just push them to the side when in actuality, it's making it worse. Right? And we witness like how this shows up specifically for Black women, right? Is how we ignore our physical, emotional, financial, and mental health needs. Like, Black women, if we want to be there for our children and our families, we must first be there for ourselves. Right? I don't have children, so I can't speak to what it means to have a child. But sis, if you're not taking care of yourself, are you really taking care of your child? If you're not making sure that you're in the best physical and mental health, what sort of example are you setting for your children? And if you're not taking care of your health, you're putting your child at risk for you not being there. And we all know what that looks like I don't know if y'all have ever looked up the stats of SA of little Black girls in foster care. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. Right? People with this style never ask for help. Hold on, y'all. I got a delivery.
Go ahead, sis. I do think a lot of what you're touching on is true in regards to what's going on with black women and children, and that in some ways we don't see when it comes to the avoidant attachment style how we also subconsciously pass that on to the girls and the boys in the way that we compartmentalize the behavior of, be a man and men are strong and don't be emotional and you have to be this in the household or, you know. And then on the other side, when it comes to black women, when you're talking about, you know, the strong black woman trope and teaching young ladies to be strong and independent because with what's going on in the situation with the collective of men having no provision and protection, you can't rely on them. So it's sending a lot of mixed signals. Though I do understand what we're trying to do, I think we need to find a different, healthier way of doing it.
I totally agree, Queen. Um,
And I definitely agree with you on the avoidant in regards to, the amount of women that are carrying different levels of trauma and are subconsciously repressing that trauma and trying to get on with dealing with everyday life. And like you said, in regards to living your best life and having the best mental health possible, that goes with, literally looking in the mirror and taking a look at your own circumstances and critically, constructive criticism in what you need to do work wise on yourself. And just also remembering that healing isn't linear. There's different things that need to be worked on in different times, but to be able to give yourself not even the chance, permission. You have to give yourself the permission that it's okay for you to work on yourself, that it's okay for you to put yourself first. Um, and in practicing, things like affirmations and self care, self love, those things would hopefully change over a period of time. But us as black women also have to realize this is not an overnight process. Kicking these kind of addictions, kicking these kind of cycles, it's going to take time. So sometimes you are going to fall off the wagon, but if you do fall off, you can get back on and keep trying. If you've been around for a while, I'm in my 30s. Do you get what I mean? So you're thinking of 30 years worth of programming, whereas there's other black women in other generations that have been here 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years listening to all this different programming that's been going on subconsciously. So you got to learn to sort of put your needs first and work on your own self-esteem, your own confidence to be able to tune out that programming that's happening through the media, through everyday life, through advertisements, when we're in real life, when it's on, billboards and bus stops and the different things that we see. And just in terms of like what Coco was saying in regards to representation and showcasing better representation of ourselves to our children.
yeah, that's I feel like that's the big thing that we as black women need to like heavily, like fully step into is providing a better image for little black girls.
Mm.
Okay, so I'll jump back in here.
Go
Um,
ahead, sis.
it says people with this style never ask for help. They also avoid physical closeness. They may even eat in abnormal or distorted ways. And they accuse those in their lives of being too clingy or overly attached because they learned in early childhood that attachment is unsafe and it's unstable. So oftentimes, people that are avoidant self sabotage. Um, they may get in a relationship, whether it's a platonic relationship or a romantic relationship. And if the relationship is going well and the person is there for them and things of that nature, they may do something outrageous just to make that person back off. And it's not that they don't, because avoidance deep down want closeness, It's just they've been taught that closeness is unstable, right? And this all stems from the fear that closeness with the partner will cause them to get hurt. And also, avoidants have this heightened sense of independence and freedom. And that's more important to them than partnership, because their parents in childhood solidify that you need to be independent and you need to value your personal freedom, right? They see being dependent on others as weakness. And this oftentimes results in them shutting down. So an avoidant may enter into a platonic or a romantic relationship, but once it gets overwhelming, they may ghost you, they may start leaning away, or they may engage in behaviors that will upset their partner on purpose. So, like an avoidant could be in a long term relationship, and then once they feel like the relationship is getting too heavy, they may go cheat on you, or they may just start lying to you for no reason, or they'll do little things when you're out and about to like really annoy their partner. And it's not because they generally want to hurt your feelings. It's just because of the things that they've been through in their childhood. Right. As I said, they sabotage all relationships, whether it be work, platonic, romantic. If this avoidant has a child, they're going to wreak havoc on that child as well because of the havoc they've faced in childhood. Also, avoidant people tend to ignore and repress their own needs. And they may even go as far as to say they have no needs. So, like, if you're in a relationship with an avoidant and you're like, "Oh, what do you need from me for this relationship to work?" The avoidant would be like, "I don't need anything." And it's because they were never able to establish needs in childhood, right? Avoidants also have difficulty reading emotions and handling conflict. So, as I stated before, one of their coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms is distancing, right? And so they may distance themselves from you. And typically, outsiders may view this, and it also may seem as though they're being passive aggressive. That's how outsiders tend to interpret the avoidance behaviors, as being passive aggressive, stonewalling, or even ghosting, right? And that's because avoidants are experts, like they're next level at being able to suppress their own thoughts and feelings. And they've learned early on in childhood how to deactivate their own physiological arousal. And basically, the avoidant out of all of the attachment styles has the most control over their central nervous system, right? Like, they can control how their body responds because they aren't learned in infancy. Like, they need to shut all of that down so they don't get anxious. They're not going to really get upset. And if you're engaging in with someone that's an avoidant, you might be like, what's wrong with this person? Like, they don't get mad, they don't get sad, they don't get anything. And that's because they've learned to be blank in all of their interactions. Like, I even read in some research that you might even think they have a mental health problem because they're so emotional that it's mind-boggling. And avoidants also tend to be repulsed by intimacy. And I don't mean just like sex, because they'll actively engage in sexual relationships, but they lack the ability to become truly intimate, right? And they're also uncomfortable with being needed. And avoidance primarily tend to engage in relationships with unavailable people. So they may get in a relationship with someone that's married. They may get into a relationship with someone that already has a long-term girlfriend. Um, they may get into long distance relationships as well, where like they only meet their partner every once in a while. So like they've they've learned how to attract unavailable people and sort of try to pivot this unstable relationship to work for them, right? And the reason they're doing this is because this sort of relationship with an unavailable partner mimics their unavailable parent. Um, and we see this all the time and with Black women and our entering into non-reciprocal relationships. And I believe that we enter into non-reciprocal relationships because deep down, we don't trust and we don't rely on others that our needs will be met, right? We don't think that people are going to show up for us because society has shown us that people won't show up for us, right? So what we do is we engage in these relationships and we may unconsciously already know, okay, well, this person isn't going to show up for me, but I'm just still going to be in a relationship because that's what people, that's what humans do. And so when we enter into these sorts of relationships, we have no real standards, right? We have no boundaries. Well, we do have boundaries because you're avoidant, right? But at the same time, you're not receiving anything from engaging in this relationship. So it's serving a purpose in that it's feeding into your avoidant tendencies, but emotionally and your needs aren't being met, right? So it's an unfulfilling relationship in the end. And now the fourth attachment style, which is the disorganized attachment style, right? This is the most difficult of the insecure attachment. It's often seen in people who were physically, verbally, or essay abused in their childhood, but that's not always the case, right? Um, and so this attachment style is developed when a child's caregiver is a source of safety and fear, right? So the caregiver in this attachment style is unpredictable. Like, so the parent may one moment laugh and reward a certain behavior, and then the next moment they explode with anger and put their hands on you for the same exact behavior. Like, you could have been laughing and playing 20 minutes ago and they were okay with it, and then they came and went and you're still laughing and playing, and now they beat your ass. Like, this parent is dangerous. And because of the erratic and unpredictable way of acting, children here and who grew up in this sort of environment have no organized strategy for getting their needs met, right? So with an avoidant, you learn to shut down. With an anxious person, like, you're always looking to that partner for your security, right? It's an outward instead of inward. With the disorganized, they don't know what to do. Like, they're so confused in childhood and they experience fear without solution, right? They want to go to their parent for safety, But the closer they get, the more fear they may feel. So the child's need for consistency and to feel safe and secure just doesn't exist. Instead of what they're getting from their parent is actually terrifying. It's a lot of, and these children often display like extreme forms of emotional turmoil and have a confusing mix of behaviors because of the lack of security, right? But also, um, I read that not all of these children are physically or SA abused. Like they may be growing up with a parent who has untreated mental health issues. And so those untreated mental health issues spill over into the child, the rearing of the child. And so these children, now this attachment style can cause people to feel avoidant and anxious, right? So they may seek out relationships and center other people, but then when that person gets too close, they shut down and they may push them away. So it's this constant push and pull because they don't know how to properly get their needs met because they never learned, because their caregiver was never responsive in the manner in which they should have been. And so the behavior in this relationship is very erratic, and it can become even scary for the partner or the friend. Because if you're in a friendship with someone that has this sort of attachment style, it can be terrifying because you want to be there for them, but they're on an emotional roller coaster constantly. And they have no way to, they don't know how to self-soothe. They don't know how to regulate their emotions. They don't know how to de-escalate when they're in a situation of anger. And adults with this disorganized attachment style lack a coherent approach. So like on one hand, they want to belong and they want to be loved, while on the other hand, they're afraid to let anyone in, and they have this they have this extreme fear that people closest to them will hurt them, right? And so while adults with this attachment style fear intimacy and avoid proximity because they expect rejection, right? They expect disappointment and they expect hurt to come. And they also have a hard time believing that their friends or their partners actually love and support them, because in childhood they didn't experience like the love and support, right? And we're talking about this in a context of, because this hasn't been studied in like African Americans, and I'm going to delve deeper into the characteristics of the disorganized attachment, because I think this is where Black men fall for the most part. And I'm not saying that they fall here because of like their parents, essaying them or being violent or anything like that, because I think most Black men are overly coddled, but the behaviors that they display are that of a disorganized individual, right? The mindset of someone with disorganized attachment is that of self-sabotage, right? A disorganized individual, they may have multiple sex partners. They engage in very sexually risque tendencies, right? Because they're seeking out, sex gives them a sort of closeness, but it doesn't provide them with the intimacy, right? And so they tend to sabotage a lot of their relationships, and this ends up being like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So disorganized adults expect and predict that they'll be rejected, and they do so even when there are no signs of rejection. So a disorganized individual could be in a healthy, loving relationship, but they just don't think that anyone is ever going to love them, right? And they tend to have a very highly negative view of themselves and others, right? And we see this with Black men and the way they speak about themselves and how they speak about the Black community and Black women, right? And with the disorganized individual, there's high levels of mental health issues, substance abuse, delinquent and aggressive behavior. They oftentimes abuse and neglect their own children. Um, they also engage in degrading behaviors, not only to themselves, but to others. Um, and also, of all of the attachment styles, the disorganized is the most likely to be a drug addict, right? And they're also the most likely to end their own lives, whether that be through drug use or some other form. The disorganized attachment style can cause a lot of distress and confusion when it comes to social interactions, right? Because the disorganized individual doesn't trust anyone. So what they do is they kind of treat all people poorly because they have a poor self view. So the hate that they have for themselves, they're projecting out onto everyone else. And that's rampant with Black men. Right. And so what else? There's something else I want to. And also, for people who have this sort of attachment style, like this is one of the only attachment styles where they say you need to specifically talk with a therapist that deals with this attachment style, because this attachment style runs so deep and it is so intertwined into the person's psyche and how they interact not only with themselves and others, that you need a specialist, because it takes a lot of deep work to be able to change this sort of attachment style, because there's a lot of uh, trauma from childhood, but most of the trauma is self-inflicted from in adulthood, right? So the disorganized individual may engage in a lot of very, very risque behaviors. They have multiple sex partners. People with this disorganized attachment may have multiple children. They may have been married and divorced several times. These people tend to ruin all relationships that they enter into. Um, and the disorganized individual is also the most violent of the attachment styles, because they don't know how to self-regulate and they don't know how to de-escalate anger. So with a disorganized person, if you got into an argument with them, they're going to take it to 1,000, because that's all they know, and because the way they're going to react that way so that you can leave them alone. um so I thought that was quite interesting. Queen, did you want to speak on the disorganized?
Yeah, it had me thinking about the domestic violence within the community.
Oh,
And with the disorganized, you'll see a lot of domestic violent abusers that fall into that category, but also the victims, as in the children that are in those situations, because they don't learn to self-regulate because of what they're seeing from the person that's abused, that is abusive in the familiar relationship. as well as the emotional toing and froing, the love bombing, the
Mm-hmm.
making up, the breaking up, the violence, physical, mental, emotional. And then some of you ladies that are on my platform, we've spoken about domestic violence and the wheel of power and control, in the way that it talks about finances, the way it talks about verbal abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, and the different ways that children can also be used in that and weaponized in different financial situations. And at the same time, kids are seeing these different things. So they build up different elements of sometimes self loathing, resentment towards the person that's staying in the relationship. And this is why it's necessary for people to go to counseling and therapy, because those things get absorbed over time, and it's almost like the, what do you call it, the victim becomes the abuser
Mm-hmm.
with those kind of situations. And we know that within the black community, DV is rampant. um, and we're seeing the way that these guys, the guys on mics, are all over the internet talking about their moms being loser choosers, and calling them out of their names and saying all kinds of deplorable things, but not understanding the humanity within the woman that they're talking about, the wombs that they came out of, their own self-loathing and hatred for the different circumstances that they don't fully understand or haven't been able to compartmentalize because they're not willing to do the mental work. And we're seeing the regression taking place in different elements of the animalistic nature coming through, because they continue to be avoidant and because they can't emotionally regulate. It's these extremes which we see played out on the news every day.
Yeah. Because like one of the key traits of a disorganized individual is unpredictability, suspicion, and lack of trust. And how they respond to these things is often with violence. Because from what I was reading, like the disorganized person, violence and anger are typically their go-to, because that's how they can push you away or try to control the situation. And we see that with, like you said, with the interactions between black men and black women. I go, like, my own opinion is, I think that most black women are either anxiously attached, right? I think that we all kind of have sort of an anxious slash avoid, like we have more anxious and avoidant tendencies. But
Yeah,
I'd say that a lot of black men just fall into disorganized.
I'd say disorganized with heavy like sprinkles of avoidant.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like emotional regulation is like a huge, huge part of attachment theory. And even if you are anxious or avoidant, like there's many different ways that you can learn to self-soothe and
Hmm.
to regulate your central nervous system. So like when you get angry and things of that nature, like you have to sit with yourself and really figure out, excuse me, how your body is feeling. like do you feel a tightness in your stomach? Are you sweating? Or what's all going on with you physiologically, right? And your body's natural response to these triggers, right? So like, when, for me, for instance, like when I'm upset, like I I almost feel like I'm shaking, like it's or something like that. And so like you can do like some deep breathing techniques to sort of, like, where you take, my therapist says to take longer exhales than you do inhales, and that will slow down your central nervous system and help you to become more grounded in your emotions. And there's just little things that you can pick up on to be able to self-soothe and self-regulate and help you to better understand like why your body's responding to different things and the emotions that you're feeling in that moment, right? And I'm not, I mean, because sometimes if you get mad, you just gonna pop off. Like it happens, right? But after you've done all of that, you need to sit with yourself and figure out, Why did I allow myself to respond like that? And I'm not saying, because sometimes anger is warranted, but if you feel yourself always going to that emotion, or if you're always breaking down and crying, like why is those the first emotions that you tend to go to, right? You have to figure that out, and deal with that, so it doesn't affect you in the long run, because our cortisol levels and all of these things as black women, like it's killing us out here. And we have to learn to be able to self-soothe, and to manage our emotions, because it has a really big impact on our health.
Do you know what I was just thinking, sis? I think uh, because of everything that's been going on over this last couple of years, and then to add into everything that happened with the pandemic, I think you're right about the anxious attachment styles with the slash of the avoidance when it comes to black women, and then the other side of what we was talking about, the disorganized and the avoidant when it comes to black men. But I think also with the other factors, social implications and things that have happened, because look how we've seen over these last few years the increase of road rage. Do you get
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Not being able to self-soothe, not being able to um, de-escalate situations, conflict resolution, those kind of things that we've been talking about, key things that are necessary in leadership skills. Do you get what I'm saying? We're
Yeah.
seeing the regression of those things. So I do think, even though those main things apply to black women, I think more so with the other social factors and everybody being online and coming to this awareness and realization, and then the grieving process that's taking place and the different levels of anger that are happening, that there might be more, not more, but additional sprinkles of external pressure when it comes to the avoidant and the disorganized, where
Yeah.
we're at with the rage levels right now.
Oh yeah, I totally agree, because I mean, one thing that I feel like attachment theory is lacking is it doesn't really delve into the environmental stressors,
Mm,
right? It's basically just like, oh, if your parents are like this, then you'll be like this. When it's like, okay, there are things that go on inside and outside of a household that affects how your caregiver shows up um, in your life, right? So if your mom is working 12 hours, or she worked two jobs, and she's got three kids she's taking care of, she's going to be stressed out. She may not be as emotionally present. So although she may try to be as responsive as she possibly can with the time that she has, she may be missing out. She may not be able to fulfill all of your emotional needs. And I think that's just like unconscious, because she's having to focus her attention on so many other things. And that's where I feel like attachment theory is very much so lacking.
I would agree with you. There definitely needs to be more done on the anthropological, can't say the words now, the sociological and the anthropological. Y'all know what I'm trying to say.
The word,
There's been so
like,
many studies in the past, especially with what's going on now. Um, it would behoove them to study it, and I would be surprised if they aren't in different ways, shapes, and forms with everything that's taking place with technology now.
yeah, because that's like it's funny because you were like, I couldn't for the life of me, I couldn't say, I can't even say it now. Autonomous. I always get it wrong. I'd be like anonymous, but I think it's autonomous. Yeah, autonomous.
Mm,
Like I have a hard time pronouncing that word.
yeah, yeah. I'm hooked on phonics sometimes. Me.
But yeah, that's about it. Like I mean, if anyone wants to come up and let me say hello to everyone in the chat. Hey Tequila. Hey Andrea. Hey TMKC. Hey Dina. Hey Jelly. Hey a bit tired. I love her name. Hoy, oh, look at you. Hoy, 80% of Oh, that's funny. You're pathetic. And I'm gonna ban you.
I can't see the for whatever reason, StreamYard's a bit dodgy, but I can't see the chat for whatever reason. So good evening, everybody. I hope
Yeah.
everybody is well and having a wonderful Saturday
Like
night.
it's funny. Like I wasn't even addressing black men and like I don't know.
Attention
Are any of
seeking.
y'all in here? Let me see. I know Tequila got to be a moderator. I can't see on here on the. I'll make her one if she ain't. I don't know. And Jelly, cause y'all be here. Hey, Death. Hey, Empress. Like, why come to the chat and make unnecessary comments? It's just so strange. Like, I
Attention
don't
seeking.
like.
Validation.
It's.
Ego stroking.
I mean, listen. This that he just literally put on full display his disorganized attachment theory.
Actually, what did he say? Because I
I
couldn't see the
erased
chat.
it now, but like it was like, sir, you just gave us what we were talking about. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just it's really pathetic. But what are you guys? I hope you guys enjoyed like my breakdown on attachment theory and how I thought it applies to black women. I also I'm gonna try to drop it in the Discord, Queen, because there's like some um I wanted to like I'm a member of academia, which is like this online forum or whatever uh, of graduate students that like submit different research or whatever. And I think there's some doctoral students on there as well. But there was this paper that I thought you would really want to read, and it was about emotional. Was about emotional and hold on, let me. Is this it? No, it might be on my cell phone because I was like, I need to send this to Queen. Oh, excuse me.
Well, when you're ready, drop it in the Discord. I've really enjoyed this, sis. Because obviously it leans more into specifically black women. You know, I enjoy some Dr. Kim Sage, and
Mhm.
I'm really finding Dr. Caroline Leaf's information really interesting when it comes to what she does around neuroscience and retraining the brain. And it's ironic, really. We've been listening over this last couple, well, it's been a while on and off that I look at her page, and sometimes I'm doing a live stream and it'll, the stuff that I'm going through and looking, and I feel to share it during the stream. Do you get what I mean? Because I feel like people can get value from it. But she's got a lot of interesting things to say that I think women should pay attention to in these different avoidant attachment styles. And then she goes even more into different things when it comes to trauma and PTSD and other things that can impact your attachment styles as well.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, because I wanted to do some, because I mean, I'm a Black American, so I've primarily focused on like my statistics with in America. But like, I really want to start doing some stuff like on the Caribbean and the Bahamas, and then like the continent, because I was reading like the research about the HIV infections on the continent, and 70% of all the new infections are for women between the ages of 12 and 24.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of disgusting things going on the continent that I don't
And I
agree
was
with.
like, 12?
Yeah, because they've got these situations going on where these guys have things like the source, and in order to get rid of the source, I can't remember the actual name or term, but they'll basically sleep with virgin little girls in
Yeah, I
order to
saw
try and
that.
get rid of it. And then those little girls end up contracting it. And then you've got these guys that are going into relationships with women, not telling them that they've got, whatever STIs, STDs they've got, and then, getting women pregnant, knowing full well that they've got these things, and these babies are catching these infections. So it's like absolutely ridiculous the kind of things that women are being exposed to you know, FGM and everything else. Do you get what I'm saying? I think it's absolutely disgusting the way that, people want to pretend woman is God, but what are you doing to the physical representations on this earth in child form and in woman form?
Oh, that brings me to. I wanted to share with you guys some books that I've been. I'm probably because I mentioned I'm going to do a giveaway on my channel. It's a summer self care giveaway since I've been slacking on my content. But this is the book that this is on my. It's by Michelle Wallace, but this is an updated forward by Jamila Lemieux, and it's called The Black Macho and the Myth of the Superwoman. Like this book was highly controversial when it was written in 1978. Like the black Michelle Wallace got death threats, like black men in SNCC and the Black Panthers were sending her death threats about this book because basically she's saying exactly what we're saying now. Like she was saying it back then. I mean, if you read Bell Hooks been dragging them since forever. But that's that. And oh, because I also mentioned I wanted to bring more black feminist theory to my channel because I've been exploring a lot of modern black feminist theory lately and just trying to better understand the concepts of feminism as it pertains to black women. And I don't know if you guys know Moya Bailey. Like, I love this woman. Like, I wish she was my older sister. But Moya Bailey is like an amazing black feminist. She's written so many wonderful books. And right now I'm reading Misogynoir Transformed. And because she's the woman who basically came up with the term misogynoir in her, I think it was either in her graduate dissertation or it may have been in her PhD program where she coined the term misogynoir. But it's called Misogynoir Transform: Black Women's Digital Resistance. And then I also there's another book I didn't order it yet because I need to get through the books that I'm currently reading. But I think you like this one, Queen. It's because you're like heavy into like the activism and the stuff that you do offline. Hold on.
I'm listening to you, sis. If you put the names for me, either in the back chat or on the Discord, because I went into the bookshop yesterday. What was it? Yeah, we're on Saturday, so was it yesterday? It's in the last couple of days. Anyway, I was looking for the 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 book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, and basically they've got no copies. It's at a point now, for whatever reason here, where we have to it's like order to print. So I'm gonna order it because it's gonna take them like a month or two to print it and send it and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
that book is hard. I have it, but that book is hard to find. Even in the US, it's hard to find. Because I actually found I had to order it like here in New York City, through the Strand,
Mhm.
like at the bookstore. And like they could pretty much locate, like you say, a lot of books. And it took me like almost 2 months to get that book delivered.
Mhm. Yeah.
But this one is called hashtag activism networks of race and gender justice. I'll put the in the chat. And it's I love Moya Bailey. Like all black women need to read every book she's ever written. The same I feel that same way about Maya Angelou. I read every book by her by the time I was like 15, and some of those books I probably shouldn't have been reading. But I love me some Maya Angelou.
Yeah, I enjoy her work. I've decided over this nuts. Bear with me a second, madam's just coming to the room.
Okay, I put that book in there. And then this one, The Black Macho. And the crazy thing is like I'm one of those people, like if there's footnotes in a book, like I need to look them up. And so there were some footnotes in The Black Macho and the Myth of the Superman. I haven't finished reading the entire book. Where it's basically where this black journalist from the Village Voice, which is actually the Village Voice is out of out of print now, but it was like a newspaper in New York City. Because when I first moved here, like 10 years ago, the Village Voice was still in print, but it's no longer in print. But it was a black man that worked for the Village Voice that took out an like he worked the entire front page was basically like deriding her and her book. And so I was like, okay, you expect that from a black man. And then because he's writing this article, because I looked the article up and I read it. Like, this man is married to a whole white man talking about fighting racism, and that sexism is no saying that sexism exists in the black community in and of itself was racist, as he's married to a white southern man in the 1970s. Or no, he's married now, but they've always been together. It was crazy. I was shocked, but not really. And even Michelle, Michelle, she pointed that out in this book. She did it in a very vulgar way that I thought was very funny, about him basically having a mouthful of as he wrote that article. It was hilarious. Yeah, so those are I put the books in there that I've been reading. I don't know if you ladies would like me to drop some self-help books in there, because I've been reading a lot. I've either been reading like Black feminist theory or self-help. Like, I know that's like a weird combination.
No, it's not. Not
Uh,
at all. Do you get what I mean? Because you're focusing on self love, self care. You're getting to know what the history is when it's come to our gender based issues, gender identity, the different feminist thoughts and theory. I don't think that's a bad thing, especially with the way that the space is kind of rewriting history. Do you get what I mean? I think it's
mhm.
important, and even more so, you're hearing these dudes talking about, and I've been saying this to ladies about decentering, men, and just in terms of the different platforms that pull you in, and obviously, there's different forms of addiction, and I think sometimes we forget that there's certain things in these toxic spaces that pull us there, and we have to question why sometimes, but also learn to change those patterns, because it's like when you're getting sucked into those conversations, you could be off reading a book or learning something else. And that's what a lot of these degenerates don't want you to be able to do, whether they're male or female, is get more educated, get more aware, get more insightful, and grow and evolve. Do you get what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
want you to stay stagnated where they are and keep the crabs in the barrel mentality going. So I think it's a good thing that you're doing this. I'm really enjoying, like, I had to take a break for a hot second with everything that's been going on, but I've been really enjoying reading the books and things.
And I
And I
really
said to
like
the
your
ladies, I'm gonna be doing more book readings on the platform.
what I do is like when I'm at like in the morning, because I wake up and I have a meditation pillow. I
Hmm.
sit on the floor or whatever, and then I'll put your your uh your live streams on with like the music and the really pretty scenes. Like, it's really relaxing. Like, black women, you need to be able to just sit with yourself and watch Queen streams. Like,
Good. I'm glad
put
that you're
me in like
finding
a really good
enjoyment and
mindset
use out of
for
it.
the start of my day.
Because that's the thing. Even over the last how long, me and Madam have been sitting down and setting our own goals. Do you know what I mean? And I had to take a hot look at myself with everything that was going on and the way that, doing all this content, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it impacts my own mental health and I have to take a break. And it was like, you know what, I'm gonna get back into my meditation, my mindfulness, and I'm gonna share it with y'all, and hopefully y'all will get something out of it. So I'm glad that you're getting something out of it.
Yeah, I enjoy it because I've really I've been actively getting back into, because I listen to positive affirmations on
Mm.
Spotify.
Mhm.
There's several like black women podcasters that do like positive affirmations, and I listen to those, And then I've been starting to like really get into meditating.
Mhm.
And I feel like when I meditate and I have like those, or the hand, what is the steel pan man? Like I
Yeah.
love that man, Queen. I'm like, Queen, they
This
got
is
me
the
thinking
thing.
white man.
Listen, when he likes to throw down on the pans, and I found now he's got a platform here on YouTube. I was on TikTok listening to his stream, and then he pulled out this YouTube plaque. So it's like, oh my gosh, you're on YouTube. And then I came off TikTok, and then literally he popped up, and I was like, ooh. So I've been sharing, out of respect for his content, and obviously he's got longer lives on YouTube in comparison to TikTok, where there's like an hour and stuff. So I'm sharing more of those on the community wall, and I'll be sharing more of those in the Discord because there's some really beautiful ones.
Yeah, I just bought my first. Well, I ordered a sounding bowl.
Mm.
I was like, I got a small one. Them things is expensive, Queen.
Girl, I had one, but it's not here anymore. Rest in peace, Sound Bowl.
I was like, hold on. Y'all want $500 for a bowl?
Girl. I miss like the 90s before it was popular and they were dirt cheap or just traveling and you'd find these little things. But now, woo child, they're expensive.
They are. And I was
Mm,
like, I had bought one. I bought a small one because I was like, baby, they want like 15, 16, $1,700 for some of them bowls.
mhm.
I'm like, what is this stuff made out of? Like, yo, like, come
Well,
on.
this is the thing. Some of them are made out of crystal. Some of
Hmm.
them are made out of quartz. It just depends. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
You'd have to
I bought
do
a very
research
small
into
rose
them.
quartz one.
And
And it
then
was,
some of them are like the
um,
Tibetan metal and stuff like that. And there's like special techniques with certain ones. So yeah, there's a whole craft with some of them, depending on where they're made. They go through all these tribalistic rituals with the sound bowls, cleansing them in water, and So it just depends. But yeah, I don't even want to look now. I think the last time I looked at sound bowls and things was like just before the pandemic, so I don't even want to look now at what the prices are.
girl, I'm like,
And cross fingers one shows up in TK Maxx or Target or something. Oh gosh.
but
Mm.
the thing that I found, when I was, because like, I'm a, like, I always research. Like, it's just something that I do. I mean, it's
Mhm.
what I do for a living. So, but that singing bowls and sound bowls aren't actually Tibetan. There is no historical evidence that it's a purely Western, like what's the word I'm looking for? Basically mythology that they made up to
Yeah,
like
yeah,
exoticize Tibet.
yeah.
I was like, God, but you know what? I like the singing bowl. I was like, because the thing I mentioned to you guys, like, I've been taking like Reiki lessons. Like, I'm really into New Age stuff because I've had, I used to do like, my mom introduced me to Reiki and healing touch.
Mhm.
And like when I was like my lupus was flaring like really really bad a few years ago, like I used
Mhm.
to go and get these. I used to go get Reiki and like healing touch massages, and I would feel
Mhm.
like just so much better. And so I was like, oh, that's something that I want to get into is learning how to do Reiki on myself and
Mhm.
like healing touch. And like
Yeah.
the weird thing is like if you find someone who's got really really good energy,
Mhm.
you can feel so cleansed. Because the lady, like when I go home, that does my like because she's the only one that I allow to do it because I don't want to be absorbing. I don't, you never know with some people's energy, and I just
True.
feel comfortable and safe with this woman.
Mhm.
And when she does the healing touch, it's the weirdest thing because although she's not actually touching me, I feel like there are 1,000 hands on my body. Like, and I always just have the most cathartic, like crying sessions while she's doing all of this, and I just feel light. Like I don't know what type of energy this Jamaican lady got, but baby, She go cleanse that energy. Like my mom's friend, she's from Jamaica. Um, they both, well, she's working her PhD now, and I don't know. I love her. I love Simone. What her like, but some her accent's so thick. I'm like, Simone, you've been in this country for like 20 years. Why your accent so thick? Like you really sound like you just got off the boat. Like what's going on
Okay.
here?
But yeah, on the Reiki and everything, I do think it's a wonderful thing that you do that. Um, like the way that the foot is connected to the different organs in your body, and the way that you can, like, I was trained years ago doing Reiki, aromatherapy, crystal healing. When I was about, I think I was about 17, 18, I really got into the new age, different elements of things, the singing bowls, doing Swedish massage, Reiki, and all those different things.
Hmm.
I did it self-employed for a while, in the younger days. But yeah, even since having Madam, it's been like wonderful. It's something useful to have under your belt for your own self-care, but
Yeah.
also the well-being if you have children or if you've got children at the moment, because sometimes there's been certain things where I've been able to look at Madam's foot and pinpoint that, her vitamin levels are off, or, discoloration here, discoloration there, and it's like, okay, you need a top up of this, drink this, take this. You know what I mean? So it is really, really useful, and it's wonderful the way that you can learn about your body and how it works. I think the body is an absolutely amazing thing. I think women need to really, really invest in different ways. Like, obviously, I talk about entitlement and the way that dudes want autonomy, but it's also about us um, making the physical step in terms of actions in researching and getting to know our bodies, our mind, our soul in ways that, our parents have never really delved in, or our mothers never really delved in, because of that whole possession and women being a resource and you are mine. Or if you're learning something, it's for the benefit of your husband or
Yeah.
your children. You know what I mean? But it should also be the benefit for yourself as well. Do you know what I mean? But it,
Yeah.
something wonderful in terms of doing like crystal healing and stuff. I definitely think ladies should invest in that because of the way that our bodies are connected to the earth, connected to Mother Nature, connected to the moon, connected to the sea, and things like doing outdoor meditation sessions and grounding yourself can really,
Yeah.
really help your energy.
Like grounding,
Mm.
like I don't know if tequila's still here, but like tequila, you should start doing grounding. It'll be like really, really good for the inflammation. Like my joints don't ache as much. Like my knees aren't as swollen as they used to get. Because like for me with my lupus, like this it's a lot of joint pain. Like some days I can't even turn a doorknob.
Mm.
But like with me grounding more and also because like I have a grounding sheet on my bed. But like just
Mm.
going like I'll just go to Central Park and people can look at me crazy all you want to. I'm out there hugging trees. Like I've got my
Yes, hugatory. Why not? Because the thing is, we're exchanging with, like, the thing with us as humans beings, and also especially us as women, as the womb holders, is we have a connection with the earth. We're always, in terms of like, even the fact that we breathe out and breathe in, we're breathing in oxygen and breathing out the carbon. The trees are taking the carbon and turning that back into oxygen. So there's always a reciprocal energy there. But with everything that's been going on over the last few years, we can't pretend like the energy's not off. And
hmm
that the way that we need to recenter ourselves, our chakras, our mind, bodies, and soul, and getting ourselves back on track and finding more balance. And once you find more balance, you'll see other things start to dissipate in terms of these hairpin triggers or reactions to the way that you deal with things. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's
Yeah,
really about investment in self.
it really is. Nice.
What you chewing? You know me.
They're tearing up stuff when
What you eating?
mm,
Oh gosh. And even like me and MJ was talking on a previous stream about how, you know, it's summer. Ladies need to go out, have fun, reconnect, take yourself out on dates, you know, treat yourself to nice meals, treat yourself to some nice wine, start making a little fund if you're not in a financial position right now and don't have much to spare. Every few days, throw some change. It just depends. Some people do it digitally now with just taking a certain amount out of the bank account and putting it into
Mhm.
a certain part. Some people still walk with money and throw change into jars and stuff. But start finding like a few dollars, even if it's cents, pounds, coins, 10 pence, and start putting that aside and just build up to the point where you can go and treat yourself to a nice massage or a day out or, you know,
Yeah, like you could, like for me, like you, it doesn't even have to be anything expensive. You could go to a cute little cafe and have yourself a little cappuccino and a croissant,
okay.
and
Mm-hmm.
and just have some me time. And you
Yes.
you don't have to spend money. Like you could go. I mean, I guess if you have to take public transportation there, you have to spend a few, a little bit of money, but just wander around the city in places that you've never been before, exploring little shops. You don't have to spend money. Like you can
True.
go and window shop and all these other things. Like there's things you need to center yourself and make yourself feel good. Like I like going to the museum.
Mm-hmm. That's my jam. Museums,
Like
art galleries.
yeah, and oh, for anyone, because there's it's called Black Girls in Art Spaces. I think they even have a UK one where they meet up and go to different art galleries as groups, and it's all over in the US and in the UK. And I love watching them. It's
I've seen a space recently. It might be the same one. I know at the moment there's something that they're doing because there's an exhibition around black women, black girls specifically, that's in London. I want to see if I can take Madam to go and see it before they pull it down. But just generally, I love art galleries, museums. Just going for walks, getting out and
Mhm.
just exercising and just getting into a better pattern. Do you get what I'm saying? And especially with it being the summer, ladies, get your vitamin D, okay? Make sure you get your vitamin D because, there's a lot of us that are deficient of that, especially here in the UK with the weather being all over the place. Make sure you get your vitamin levels checked. Things like anemia, iron deficiencies, vitamin D deficiencies are prevalent. Sometimes B12, B1 can be prevalent with us. So make sure you get your vitamin levels checked with your doctors and just keep on top of your health. It's really, really important. It's really important.
Yeah, even something that I've started doing is like mental health walks. Like
Mm,
going outside and just walking improves your mental health. Being outdoors in the elements, having
mm-hmm,
the sun shine on your skin, like I just you just do little things to, make yourself feel better and to get out there. Cuz I know that there are black women that are introverts, and there may even be black women who don't have like, a large friend circle, right?
mm-hmm,
But I feel like you have to put yourself out there and step outside of your element, right? So if you're one of these black women that has never actually taken herself out on a date, sis, you need to take yourself out on a date, even if that's just going to the movies by yourself. Like we can't, have to rely on ourselves for our own happiness, and like pour into yourself. Like that's something that like I've been really, really trying to do this year, is like focusing more on myself, because in the past like I've been more focused on accomplishing my career goals, and I've kind of put like my self-care and all this other stuff on the back burner, and I realized that it was really affecting me, my mental health, right? Because I was stressed out, and that was showing up in like my lupus flaring, and me not and because like I was so focused on my career and graduating and doing all of these things that, society tells you you need to do, and then the pressures of like my own family, like I was kind of neglecting myself. And we as black women, we oftentimes put others before our own needs. And I like I do that a lot, like especially when it comes to like what my family expects of me. So I've had to learn to step back from that and focus on what I expect from myself, right? Because I realized that although like education and all these things are something that I value, like I was overvaluing it over myself. Like, oh, well, if I do this and do that, you know, I can get this and that. And my parents are going to look at me in this certain light, right? Because even though I'm in my 30s, uh, like when it comes to pleasing my parents, like, oh, I'm going to jump through those hoops. And I had to unlearn that. Like, I had to know that it's okay if I'm not always doing the things that they want me to do. Like, this is my life, right? And I can't be stressing myself out living for someone else, even though they're my parents. And when I realized that, like, it really, really helped me to like step back and center myself again. Because like the how can I put it? Like being the firstborn, like there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot of pressure. Like it's a lot of pressure because my parents are always like, growing up, all I heard was you have to set the example for your younger brother and sister. If they see that you can do it, then they'll do it. And it was just like, okay, so I have to hit all of these requirements because my younger brother and sister are looking at me, and if I fail, then they're gonna fail. And I had to undo a lot of that thinking because it was very like I was creating a toxic mindset. Um, and I think that that goes back to me because I know that um, as we were speaking about attachment style, like I know that at one point in time I was anxiously attached, right? It was for me, it was like I found value in my accomplishments and how my accomplishments made my family feel. So it was like, okay, I'm on the dean's. If I don't get on the dean's list, my parents are gonna feel this type of way. And if I don't make the dean's list, then I don't deserve to be praised, and I don't deserve affection, and I don't deserve, parental love. Like, and I had to unlearn a lot of that because it was hurting me, right? And maybe one day I'll be able to have this sort of conversation with my parents, but like right now, I don't think so. Um, but that's a conversation for another day. And as Black women, as I sit here and tell you guys that we have to um, take hold of our own image and our own self, how you feel about yourself. Like it's a continual battle for me, and I don't want any of you to think that like, oh, the Dusty Love connection just got all our stuff together because I don't. Like I may be accomplished in my career, my educational, but me working on like my emotional needs and my mental health, that's a journey I'm going to always be on, right? And I'm unlearning a lot of things that, and I'm learning to not like I'm unlearning and I'm learning to not put so much value on certain things just because of how I think they'll make my parents feel, or because I know that, oh, if you go and get another degree, your mom and dad will be like, they'll be super proud and they'll be able to brag and all this other stuff. Like that shouldn't be my reasoning for continuing my education. Like I should be continuing my education because I want to, and not to say that I didn't, because I did. But a huge factor was like, oh, this is something that I know my parents deep down want me to do, so I'm gonna do it, right? And I'm trying, like I'm in therapy and I do cognitive behavioral therapy. And I'm trying to get to a point where I am a securely attached individual, right? Because I know that I'm not quite there yet, but it's a journey that I'm on, right? And so as I mention all that, there's a book that I've been reading by Dr. Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller, and it's called Attached. And it's Are You Anxious, Avoidant, or Secure? How the Science of Adult Attachment Can Help You Keep and Find Love. And then my therapist actually recommended this workbook, right? And it's called Anxious Attachment Recovery Workbook, Your CBT Guide to Overcome Abandonment Fears, Reclaim Your Worth, and Develop a Secure Attachment Style. Because, like, for me personally, I think my anxiety comes from, like, I feel as though, not that my parents have ever said this to me, but, like, I feel as though there's this constant need for me to attain or amass all of this education because I know that that's something that they value, right? And so I think my own value has gotten wrapped up in this weird sort of way in my career goals and in my educational attainment. And for a long time, that's what I steep my value on. And I'm no longer doing that because I'm a valuable person, whether I went to college or not, whether I have a good job or not. Like, I'm a valuable person, and that was something that I had to learn, right? Because for me, my like the things that I accomplished in life are what gave me my value for a very long time. And that's like that in and of itself is toxic because you put all of this pressure on yourself, and then even when you're not falling short, you still feel like you're falling short. It's like it's weird. And so I never want to be back there again because it's a lot. So that's all I want to say. I'm sorry if
No, sis. Listen, girl, I'm behind here saying, preach, Coco. Okay, listen, oldest of five. Yeah, so I get it. And then Caribbean parents, like obviously they're not, well, they're not as strict as when I was young, but there's always been the pressure to get education under your belt, wanting a son that was a doctor, a daughter that was a nurse, the other children to be lawyers, and all these kind of other things. And then, like, there was other bits early when you were talking about the avoidance, the secure attachment and the ambivalence, where I was thinking about how when it comes to black women in the community, especially, it reminded me of the church, and then you were speaking about it not too long ago, in the way that sort of the mothers and fathers have this um competition about whose children's doing what. And I've seen it like going to the Nigerian side of the family, the aunties, when they're at the weddings and stuff like that. Well, my son's got a degree, and oh, my son became a doctor, and oh, what's your son doing, and what's your daughter doing, and my
Mhm.
daughter's just become a nurse, and do 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 do, and what's your son going to do? And it just becomes this, you know what I mean? And it gets lost, the children that are caught up in between these, I want to flex on my children's education, and then the pressure that's put on us as the next generation because of what it took for our parents to come up from where they came up from, if they're immigrants or if they've had to migrate, or, the different circumstances that we go through. Do you get what I'm saying? There's so many things that I've had to unlearn, coming from a Caribbean background, and that mix of culture with the UK, and going through, I definitely highly recommend cognitive behavioral therapy. That has done wonders for me over the years, unlearning different behaviors. And I think it's been a benefit in different ways to the child that I'm now raising, and even teaching her about therapy. Do you get what I'm saying? She has her own therapist that she goes to when she needs to. So I definitely think, all the different things and elements that you've been talking about are certainly useful. It's for black women to really pay attention and put themselves first. And the whole thing about dating yourself, you know I'm with that. Okay. I was on a date with myself yesterday, traipsing around the city center, enjoying spending some time with myself with my bubble tea, okay, and just taking in the wonderful sights and just being out instead of being cooped up at home. Do you know what I mean? I do admit I need to do more. I preach about self care and self love a lot, but I haven't been doing as much this year as I was like. And I can say for parents, sometimes it can be really difficult because sometimes you're trying to concentrate on your own self care and love journey. At the same time, you've got to balance what you've got going on with your children. And I'd say, try and find and take the time, whether it's an hour or 30 minutes out of your week or your day, if you can find that 10-15 minute break to just do some mindful meditation, it will help you in untold ways, as well as things like tapping therapy. There's lots of wonderful therapists now, that are putting out different information, different breathing techniques, different exercises for, anxiety, depression, and different things that you may find useful. But until you try different elements of things, you're not going to know what suits you. And I know sometimes it can get frustrating, like with mental health, trying to find the right therapist. But just take it easy with yourself and the processes that are going on around you societally. And just remember you're human, other people are also human as well. And just do what you can in the meantime if you're on waiting lists, because I know like different countries are facing different things. But you've got lots of different wonderful content creators online in the meantime that can help you in different ways, and just access if you're able to in your countries. Some places have 24-hour counseling services that may be of use to you at different times. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Find out, explore, have fun exploring and researching and getting to know what suits you. Don't just, like, we have the tendency as black women to just, like, when it comes to completing something, the extreme of just going to complete it. And then it's like at the end, we've completed it, but we didn't take time to really enjoy the journey or being in the actual moment. So really, really take the time to be in the moments and enjoy them.
I definitely agree. Like this summer, like I've been stepping outside of like my comfort zone. Like I just bought a
Mm,
pair of rollerblades. I was like, I want to learn to roller skate. Like I keep
mm-hmm,
seeing all these black girls over here roller skating. I was like, okay, I'm about to. I bought me a pair of. There's a brand. It's called Impala. Like
mm-hmm,
they had a sale, and I got some really cute like pink sparkly rollerblades. Like they were
mm-hmm.
originally $119. I got them for 47, y'all. I said,
You go, girl.
I was like,
And
I'm
this
gonna
is the
learn
thing.
to skate.
There's nothing wrong with exploring your inner child. Do you go what I mean? And relearning to have fun. MJ was talking about this the other day in terms of, the things that we used to do with such childlike innocence. It's recapturing elements of that and exploring, and also gratitude and abundance in changing the mindset, with how things are within the community.
Yeah, but yeah, this summer, like, this is the era of me trying everything I want to try. Like I've been taking Pilates,
Mm-hmm.
and I signed up for Muay Thai. Like Pilates is like I joined a Pilates studio, so it's like group Pilates, but like my Muay Thai is private. I've only been doing it like once or twice a week. It's relatively cheap here. It's like the private sessions are like $60. And the funny thing is like the man, he was like, so, oh, what do you want? What do you expect to gain from Muay Thai? I was like, I want to be able to beat a man's ass if he tries me. Like, and the man was like, okay. I was like, I live in New York City. Like, I want to
Girl.
be able to beat a man's ass.
Oh,
Like,
I would love to be the fly on the wall with the expression on his face when you said that.
he was like, he looked so shocked. He was like, "Oh, okay, I can I can help you with that. Like that's my
Hmm.
goal. Like what if a man tries me, I want to be able to kick his ass."
Yeah.
Like I
That's
want to be,
another element of self love and self care that we need to really, really be concentrating on.
yeah,
Protection, self defense, that comes as a part of self love and self care because it's caring about your physical, your mental, and your emotional well being and being prepared. And there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah. Because there's
And a
this
great form of exercise as well.
there's a black girl that I follow on Instagram, and she's like a professional Muay Thai fighter. Like she's over in Thailand doing it. She be beating the shit out of men,
Is
and
that the
she,
young black girl that's
yeah,
like just under 20?
I think so. Like she's very young, and she's like over in Thailand. Like
She's kicking their asses.
she's
One of
kicking
the
their
ladies, I
ass.
think, sent some things about her in the Discord, and I was like, "You go, girl."
I was like, she is over there in Thailand beating the shit out of men. And I
Hmm.
was like, I want to be like her. Like I want to
Okay.
be that well that if a man tries me, he's gonna get fucked up. Like
Spinning bird kick. Okay.
and she's not even like she's not even as brolic as I would have thought, you know? Like she's got a
Hmm.
nice amount of muscle, like she's cut up, but like she's not no big, big woman.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I want to get like sis. Like I'm gonna
Listen,
get whoop some ass out here in these streets.
explore those things. I remember before the pandemic, me and Lioness had set this challenge, which was to do with facing our fears. So every month we were doing like fear challenges and stuff. And then as the pandemic hit, one of my fears was to do with snakes. So what did Queen go and do? Get herself a corn snake. Okay, I'm not saying that y'all should go to that extreme. I did, but and it wasn't anything that was gonna bite me or do me any sort of harm, like a python or anything like that. But it was really fun trying those different things. Obviously, the pandemic hit. We wanted to do like I'm not brave enough to kind of jump out of a plane, but I was like, yeah, I can do an air tunnel. But with the pandemic
Oh,
shutting everything down, so I'm hoping that now everything's like finding I'm having fun researching and seeing what's available
it was
because
so funny
obviously things have changed.
mention that because like the last time I went on vacation and I went to St. Thomas, I was
Hmm.
supposed to jump out of an airplane, but the weather was trash the whole time I was there. And I was like, I want to skydive like so bad because I've bungee jumped. I really don't. It didn't do it for me. Like, and then the snap, like I felt like it jacked my neck up,
Ooh,
like the snapping of my neck. It was like I had
ouch.
a crook in my neck for like 3 months.
God. No, I don't think I'm ready for that. I don't think I'm ready for any of that. Like, as a photographer, I've been in the plane when people have wanted to jump out. I'll take the picture of you jumping out, but me jump out? No. I think let me brace myself with a an air tunnel first and see how we get on. I'm not at that level of bravery, but yeah.
Like I'm
You
kind
turn it into an adrenaline junkie on us, sis.
of like I'm kind of in a drill and a junkie. Like I'll try anything once. I will. I will try anything once.
Mm.
Like um when I went to the Philippines, I hate to tell people this story. Like I've eaten bugs before, like roasted bugs. I've had chocolate covered grasshoppers. The weirdest thing I've ever eaten was
What
monkey.
did the chocolate? What did that taste like?
It was just crunchy. Like it didn't really, but the ends like because they're roasted, so like when you bite into it, you kind of get this squirt, but it doesn't. But the chocolate kind of covered it up. Like, and I've had scorpions because they eat all this. Like, I'm one of these people. If I go to a foreign country, like, I'm not gonna be eating American food. Like, I want to completely submerge myself into like their, you know, their cuisine. So, like, I've had scorpions. The chocolate covered grasshoppers were like okay. Um, the scorpions tasted like a weird kind of chicken. It was it was weird because it was like it kind of tasted like chicken. And the weirdest thing I've ever eaten was I've had monkey brains.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can get that far.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise that. I had my stump like y'all. Mm-mm. It wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't. No, I had monkey brains in Asia, and I was just like, yo. When I tell y'all, I thought I was dying. Like, it was coming out of both ends, y'all. Like I was literally standing in the shower because I couldn't. I was throwing up and and doing all that all at the same time. And my best friend, when she was like, "That's why I told you not to be in there eating all this exotic." I called my mother. I was like, "Mama, I think I'm gonna die." I ended up having to go to the emergency room, and I had to be given like a bunch of fluids. Um, so yeah, don't eat street monkey brains. Like,
Yeah, there's certain things that I'm just gonna be like, nah, that's a pass. Especially like hot dogs in certain country are actual dog. And then I remember one time a friend was traveling, and I can't remember if it was Thailand or Phuket, one of those places. Anyway, she's in this market and it's full of animals, and so she thinks they're animals in terms of, for people to buy, take home as pets, not realizing this is a meat market.
oh
She went
yeah,
over to this cute kitten and was stroking the kitten. The man literally chopped the kitten's paw off and gave it to her to eat, and she screamed and ran away and was crying for like the next how many hours trying to calm her down. So
yeah,
I don't know if I can take it that far or the rat burgers, but yeah.
yeah. 'Cause like,
I think
even
I'll stick with the noodles.
like they have restaurants where you can go and eat dog.
Mm.
Like it's like a lot of the older like I not a lot of young people do it. It's more like amongst like the older men. It's like these bars where they might sell dog and drink beer and stuff like that. I didn't eat dog like that's, but like I didn't do that. But like yeah, I ate monkey brains from it. And the crazy thing is like when I look back on it, like who eats monkey brains from the side of the road? I was like, you guys, I was like 24, 25. I was adventurous. I mean, I'm still adventurous, but I'll never just don't ever eat monkey brains off the side of the road. Just don't do it. Like,
You don't have to tell me twice, okay? Mm-mm. I'm good. I'm good on that. I think I'll stick with the noodles. I
yeah,
think I'm safer with the noodles.
because I was just like, oh, I'll try anything once, but no, I almost died, y'all. I almost physically died. Like I was just like, oh God. Like I literally felt like I just wanted someone to rip my intestines out. Like I was like, I don't even want a stomach no more.
Oh,
This
boy.
is
Mm-mm.
just too much. But yeah, like it was some of the worst food poison I've ever had in my life.
Oh, no, thank you. I think, I remember a time, at one point, I didn't eat like shark or dolphin when I was living out in Barbados. I point blank refused because I used to have flipper in my head. And then one day I went to a friend's home and we were eating the food around the table. And big helpings into the plate and queens chewing away. And the food had tasted absolutely delicious. And when I looked up, everybody's looking at me, staring at me, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" And then they're telling me that I'm eating Jaws and Flipper. And I'll be honest. At that point in time, I was in floods of tears. I was like, "No, don't kill Flipper so that I can eat Flipper. It's not fair." I think I was probably about 18 at that point. So yeah, but now Jaws tastes good, okay?
Because I mean, because I think the Trinis they eat bacon shark or whatever that's called. Is it shark and bake or
Something
something like
like that.
that?
Mm.
Hmm.
Certain things I wouldn't go as far as. I'm not like some people are partial to like things like shells. What do you call them? Snails and stuff like that. Mm-mm.
Oh, I don't like escargot. Like Nigerian people eat a lot of snails.
Not me. Mm-mm. I'll stick with the jollof rice and stew. But yeah, no, not the snails.
Yeah, like mm-mm. I don't like. I don't like because I also don't like oysters.
Mm.
Like I just can't. I can't do anything. I don't even care if they're grilled. Like I just can't do it. I just can't. I'll eat mussels,
Mhm.
but I won't have. I just can't. Mm-mm. Oysters just. I just don't like. I don't like the way they look. And then like you have to make sure you properly clean them because they could be kind of gritty.
Mm.
But I like ceviche and I like tartar. I love foie gras, but like I think it's illegal in the U.S. now. Like duck pate because of how they have to like basically stuff the seasonings down a live duck's throat to the point where they suffocate, so they consider it inhumane. Because I don't think you can actually get foie gras anymore, and I don't think you can get it. And can you still get it in New York? I don't know. I don't. I feel like they outlawed it because it was like considered hostile to animals, like the preparation of it. But baby, I love me some duck pate. I mean, it's messed up that they have to basically suffocate a duck alive. What's going on with my throat? My ears need to pop.
Yeah, I think at one point I remember there's been a number of years where they've had protests over that here in Europe.
Yeah, but it's so good, y'all. It's so good. But it's very inhumane because they stuff the duck to the point that they stuff its abdomen to the point where like all the way up to the like all through its esophagus, like the duck can no longer breathe, and then they basically let those spices ferment, and then the duck basically just slowly suffocates over the course. Like I guess it goes into shock and then it kind of just dies. But duck pate on a nice piece of toast is so good. It's creamy. I mean, it's got a ton of calories because it's very fattening. Oh, tomorrow, y'all. I was watching this lady on YouTube, and there's this soul food restaurant in New York City. I can't remember if the food truck was Amy Ruth's or Melba's, but anyway, it's one of these soul food places that's like really well known because they're in Harlem, but apparently they got a food truck in Central Park now. So tomorrow I'm gonna take the bus over to Central Park because apparently they make a waffle cone um, with like fried chicken on the inside, and then it's drizzled in this like Tabasco aioli. Ever since I saw this video, I've been fiending, y'all. And I don't really eat fried chicken, but I'm going over here to get this. And apparently, like the waffle cone that it's in is like a red velvet waffle cone with the fried chicken. Y'all, I'm going to be in soul food heaven tomorrow. I
Oh, that sounds nice.
tell you.
Please take a bite for me while you're there.
Yeah, shark bait. That's what it's called, Kia. Oh, girl, I'm gonna tell you. Oh, I take a picture and upload it to the Discord because, like, my mouth been like when you just become fixated on getting on needing to have something. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's how I am. Ever since I saw this 2 days ago, I was like, oh, and she was saying that they're in Central Park on Sunday, so that's like I live like maybe 10 minutes from Central Park on the bus. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm gonna go right on over there and get me one of these red these chicken and waffle cones.
Girl, today my cousin had a barbecue, and yeah, Queen ate some food today, so I'm feeling nice. The stomach feels nice. Check one.
Mm.
Okay.
I haven't had no good barbecue in a long time. But there's something that I've been, y'all might think this is crazy, but like I can't wait to go back home just because, like, so I could tell my daddy, like, I want some frog legs. Like, y'all, I love frog legs. Y'all can judge me all you want to, but when I go home, I'm going. I'm probably going to eat about 15 frog legs in one sitting. They're so. I mean, because frog legs are small, they don't have a lot of meat on them, but it tastes like chicken. Like I would say, it actually tastes like a better version of chicken. Um, and my dad usually fries them. They're so good. And there's also this place in Chinatown that I like to go to get frog legs as well, but it's more like in a stew. Um, but yeah, I love frog legs. Like I just can't wait. I can't wait to go and tear up some frog legs. Every time I go home, I'll be like, before I come, I tell my dad, like, make sure you have my frog legs when I come home because that's what I look forward to eating. I, I'm a pretty adventurous eater. Like in life, I live by the motto: I'll try anything once, as long as it's not like too far out there. But
So when you say not too far out there, because everybody's got different levels of what they think is extreme, and so what would you consider something that's extreme?
like, I wouldn't eat anything. Well, I mean, ceviche is raw, but like, I'm not. I don't eat anything raw. Like, I would never eat like. I mean, I've already had brains of an animal, so I would never. That's kind of far out there for me now. Like, I would never do that again. Um, or like eating like dogs,
Hmm.
um, like cats or like weird birds. Um, I would never eat anything like, because I know people. Apparently, I heard people eat pigeons. That's like a rat with wings. Like,
Yeah, pigeons to me are like rats with wings, but yeah, people. There's like in parts of England, there are certain types of pigeons in certain areas that they do like pheasant shooting or pigeon shooting and things like that. Apparently, those ones are edible, but the inner city ones, no, those are rats with wings.
but here's a great. As I say that, I've eaten squirrel before. Like my grandfather, rest his soul. Like in my grandpa. This is gonna sound very wild. Like my grandparents lived on like a large piece of land, and in the back of their house was like it's like a y'all gonna think I'm country as hell. It's a creek in the back of the house, or a creek, however you want to pronounce it. Growing up, like my grandpa always called it a creek. So it's like this creek in the back of the house, and then if you crossed over, because there was like this little bridge my grandfather built, there was like this massive cornfield. But anyway, my grandfather growing up, like he would be on the back porch with with his pistol, and he would shoot squirrels, right? and and then he would cook them up, like, and I would be the only person, just me and my grandpa, and because no one else would eat them. But like, yeah, I would eat squirrel with my grandpa. Like I've always been sort of like adventurous. But one thing, my grandfather used to go fishing. I would never eat turtle, just because like turtle stew. Just because like when he would crack that shell, the smell, like it would make all of outside stink. Like I just couldn't eat turtle. Like that was something I could never do. But I'm a pretty adventurous eater. Um, yeah. But one thing also, because like I've got Black American relatives, I'll never eat chitlins. That's out there for me. And I know some people like tripe. I can't do that either.
Yeah, growing up in a Caribbean household, probably if my grandmother was alive and to ask her all the things that she was feeding us back in the 80s. Do you get what I mean? Tripe and them things would have been those kind of things, and liver and onions and chitlins and all those other things. But these days, all the sort of like pig's foot and all those kind of other things that they were doing, I don't cook half of the stuff now. And there's some of the Jamaican favorites, like the typical ackee and saltfish or the curry goat. I've tried to find healthier ways of cooking those things these days when I do occasionally treat myself.
There's a Jamaican restaurant near me that makes aki saltfish hummus.
Oh.
It is so good, Queen. What
Mm-mm.
what is it called? What is the name of that place? I need to Google it.
See, that's the thing. When I travel, I love to go to different places, explore the culture, go to the art galleries, and definitely food. Definitely food places.
Oh, it's called Miss
Yes.
Lily's. Miss Lily's in New York City. I
Miss
think
Lily's.
there used to be two locations, but I think the other location closed down. But like Miss Lily's, and
Mm-hmm.
then my favorite Jamaican, like more upscale Jamaican place is because there's like it's like a restaurant slash night lounge. It's called Negro Village. Like whoever that chef is in the back, like oh, like they're a wizard because they everything is bussing, like
Mm-mm.
everything. I've never been to like any restaurant where like me and my friends and everybody's meal was amazing. The drinks are like the drinks are kind of strong, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like a big drinker. Like
Mm-hmm.
a glass, two glass of wine, I'm tipsy. But they have this, they have this Jamaican rum punch there, baby. You gonna be laid out.
Well, they don't call it a rum punch for nothing. Okay, that's how a proper, when it comes to the rum punch or the Guinness punch, there's supposed to be a lick after it. A lick, but it just depends what it is. Whether it's, with the rum punch, obviously it's the different rums and stuff like that. With the Guinness punch, yes, you got the kick with the rum and the Guinness and stuff, but it's also supposed to be a punch in terms of the vitamins and minerals that are in the mix if you've mixed it correctly when I was younger. But you know what I mean? I'm definitely gonna put those on my food bucket list from New York.
Yeah, like I had a glass of that rum punch and I was done for the night. I didn't even have a big glass. I had like I was like, what in the this tastes like some and the thing is Queen, it didn't taste like no liquor was in it.
Yeah.
So like I'm drinking it real fast. And then I'm just like I'm sitting there and I'm like, what I'm wasted.
Jamaican rum punch wasted. Okay, God.
Like I
I
was
remember,
like, this is they had me toe down.
that's a sign of a good punch. Okay, I remember how many years ago when we moved into a house and I had a housewarming party for everybody. How many days before? Basically, I'd had rum and some other things left over from fermenting for black cake that we usually do over Christmas. You get what I mean? But
Mhm.
usually the rum, the wine, the ginger, and everything is usually soaking the fruits for a good year in preparation for that cake if you're doing it properly. So I had a whole heap of fruit and rum and wine and stuff that was already mixed left over. So for about 2 weeks before the party, I had a whole heap of fruit, mixed pineapples, raisins, mixed with the fermented stuff that had been left over a year into this mix, and then dashed a whole heap of 70 proof plus rum that I bought back from Jamaica because they only sell certain ones over here at certain levels and it like the 40 proof and stuff. But if you want the real thing, you get it from home and
Yeah.
dashed in how many bottles, mix that stuff, lick off everybody head. Everybody had done. Okay, people didn't feel the lick, and then people are sitting there with the spoon, chewing away, eating the fruit, not realizing they're getting drunker and drunker and drunker. It was fun though. That was a party, boy. Oh gosh,
Mm-mm.
that was some fun. But yeah, make memories, ladies. Enjoy your experiences. Whether it's cookouts, whether it's going for walks, just learn to be in the moment and have fun
Yeah.
and have those experiences. Create your own bucket lists, your own manifestations, your own goals, things that you want to complete for yourself. And even, for those of you who have children, or maybe you're an aunt or an uncle or a cousin to somebody else that's younger, when they see you doing these things, Do you get what I mean? They get into healthy patterns. Because for a while, I do affirmations with Lioness. She has a mirror, and she's got, her own goals and things. Usually, when it comes to something like, say, for example, like October and November, we start prepping for next year in terms of thinking about what it is that we want to complete goal wise and stuff, and start setting our targets before January kicks in so that we've started getting ourselves prepared and organized for the next period in time. Do you get what I mean? But even you sitting down and doing your manifestation board, you can make those things that you do together with your kids, them saying their affirmations in the mirror while you're doing their hair and stuff, and making and helping them, create their own affirmations for themselves. It helps them build confidence and self-esteem and gives them pride in themselves.
Oh, but Empress, Negro Village is where it's going to, because every man up in there's. The last time I went, every Jamaican man in there was beautiful. I was like, oh my god. The coat check man was fine. The bartender was fine. The DJ was fine. The waiter, I was like, oh, this is too much. I was like, this is too much. And it was like I remember our waiter, like he was like this. I don't even know. He was like this. He had this brown, like I don't even. I've never seen a man this color brown. Like it was just his brown was so beautiful, and he had these super long, like silky dreads. And I was just like, sir, I drink your bath water. Like, let me stop.
Not the bathwater, sis. Not the bathwater.
I was like, let me rub some shea butter on your body, sir.
Oh gosh.
My friend was like, like I'm up here. I'm like, oh, I kept calling him over to the table. I don't even need nothing. I'm just like, can I have some more water? I'm dropping forks on purpose. Like this man was fine, y'all. Like I ain't seen a man this fine in a long time. He was so attractive that he wasn't even handsome. He was beautiful. I was like, I wonder what your mom and daddy look like. Cause
Be careful, ladies. Be careful of
girl,
these Jamaican men. And then you've got
I
the
already
rum punch in the mix.
know.
Okay, take time. Take time. Okay.
I was like, I'm not even gonna lie, y'all. I was in that restaurant acting dehydrated. Like I was deep, like I was thirsty, y'all. You would have thought I just got out of prison the way I was acting. My friend was like, she was like, if you call this man over to the table one more time. But yeah, he was real nice looking. I was like, oh, they must got something down in the water in Jamaica. But
Mm-hmm. There's definitely some things down in the water down there. So be careful. Be careful of the anacondas. Okay. And that punch. Me wanna know. All right.
mm-mm. I say, I say, goodness, I've heard too many bad things about Jamaican men, so I'm gonna steer clear. Mm-mm. My mom always be trying to. She'd be like, "Find yourself a good Haitian man." I'm like, girl, don't nobody want an uncle. Mm-mm. Like this air conditioner is tearing my throat up, but it's so hot that like the minute I turn it off, I get to sweating. But like I just can't. I probably. I wonder if the filter on it needs to be changed. I'm probably gonna have to call maintenance. Cause like every time I turn it on, y'all, like my throat gets to itching. I don't know what's going on.
You might have allergies and stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, with it being summer and it's hot in New York, I'm assuming.
Mm, yeah, it's real hot outside.
And then sometimes the spores and pollen from the plants and things can trigger things in the environment.
Yeah. Oh, you was there last weekend? I haven't been there in a while, but I do like Negro Village. Like, I like the atmosphere. It's real cute. But like, if you want more affordable Jamaican food, then I like Miss Lily's because they used to have a location. I want to say it might have been, was it in Chelsea? I can't remember, but I know I for sure they got one in the Lower East Side because it used to be near my because it used to be near my old apartment. Well, it was within walking distance because I lived in East Village, and the Miss Lily's is down by the Lower East Side near that park. I forget what the name of that park is right there. Girl, I don't know. I've got a weakness for men with dreads. Like it's just something about a dreadhead. And the crazy thing is, like, I've never actually even dated a man with dreads. I just really like I like men with dreads. Like back in the day when they used to do like Man Crush Monday, like my Man Crush Monday always had dreads. That or he had really nice thighs because I'm a woman who likes I like a man with muscular thighs. Like I don't know, it's something about a man with some big old cut up thighs that just does it for me. Oh, you had rice and beans and plantation grilled red snap, oh, plantains and grilled red. Have you been to what's it called? Have you been to the restaurants called Legos? Like their red snapper is so good, and I also like they jollof is a little bit too spicy for me because even though I'm Haitian, like I can't do the spice. Like I can't do super spicy. But their ofada rice bussin'. Like every but here's the thing. The service is abysmal. The restaurant on the inside is beautiful. And if you go in the evening, it's gonna be some beautiful women up in there dancing and singing. Um, like it's a really nice restaurant. It's just very disorganized. And you would think it wouldn't be that because I mean it's like it's not directly in Times Square, but it's like it's kind of in Times Square. But also the Nigerians gonna tax you, so it's a little expensive too. Ooh, Rasta Pop. Kia, why are you taunting me? And what's funny is like there's a I'm not gonna say the name of the restaurant because I live in that it's near my neighborhood. But there's a restaurant, a Jamaican restaurant in the city, right? And it's black owned. They opened up. I want to say they've been open since before COVID. The first time I went there, the jerk chicken, it was busting. Like I was like, okay. My thing is like I don't like Jamaican macaroni. Like I don't like how y'all make it. Like it, I just don't. I don't like it that way. Like I don't like macaroni pie or whatever. However y'all do it. Like it'd be too thick for me. I ain't like they macaroni. They rice and peas was okay, and what was it? The festival was all right, and so I was like, okay, the jerk chicken, the festival, everything. But I had went there late at night, so that was like, okay, maybe that's why. Like, so I'm just getting like whatever left after they've been cooking all day. The second time I went there, I was so disappointed. Like I was so disappointed because I made sure to go earlier in the day. And I was like, ooh, there's a Jamaican restaurant. It's black folks. I could fully support. Y'all, that food is trash. And then when you go on Yelp and read the reviews, it's nothing but white folks raving about it. That should have been my first red flag. Yeah, girl, that rum punch will how you knocked. And you said you had three. Like I was in the cut, like y'all, I'm ready to go home and go to sleep. I'm not a big drinker to begin with, and I'm more of a wine. I'm more of a wino, and I can't even really say I'm a wino because a glass and a half, I'm be smacked. Um, but like you get me to drinking some liquor, oh, I'm done. You gonna have to help me into my apartment and lay me in the bed. 'Cause that's it.
I think with parts of like the Caribbean culture when it comes to like the Jamaican culture, because of like things like Guinness punch and the other punches that exist, the sexy juice and all those kind of things, depending on whether you grow up in the kind of Christian side or whether you grow up in, I suppose, the kind of more urban side of things, some of us get taught that, well, not taught, but sometimes it happens in terms of being taught how to drink so that these dudes out here can't drunk you. And then there's the other side of elements of it just being a part of the culture and just building a constitution towards it, especially when you're eating it in cake and food and
Yeah,
punch. Do you get what I'm saying?
no, I totally get it.
Mm. Like, I can't drink like I used to back in the day since I've gone through my like whole health journey. But yeah, there was a time when Queen used to put dudes under the table. Okay, slammed all those dominoes and lick bottle. But these days, no, I'm in a different place. I'm in a different place.
But hell, like where are all these weird people popping up from?
They got issues.
Like,
Attention seeking, go.
girl. Goodness.
Saturday night, some people, they've got time on their hands and stuff and just want to be troll and do foolishness. Like I said, I can't see what's going on in the chat because my version of StreamYard is acting go.
Yeah, like I wonder what was going on with StreamYards earlier. That was very strange.
Yeah, when I went back and I listened to it, I was like, because I couldn't hear all of that on my side. It sounded fine on my side. It wasn't until I listened to the playback just before I came in when I was trying to find the wire to where the lead from the charger was. When I listened back to it, I was like, whoa. So, over this last month, there has been a lot of glitches with StreamYard, and I've had glitches, and I've seen other content creators dealing with it, and I think there's been updates to people's systems, and you know, uh, so I think it's taking them a hot second to catch up with the different glitches. But over the last couple of months with the YouTube, it's been difficult being in chats anyway, because it's like keyboards be glitching and stuff. And freaking out and then getting obsessed with one person's name bouncing up and down and stuff.
Hmm.
So it's like, ugh. So, but slowly rectifying things. It's just reporting it. I think it's because it's a newer feature as well. But I'm glad they've brought that feature in. Hopefully they'll sort it out.
Yeah,
It,
hopefully they get it straightened out soon.
yeah, I know YouTube's got their own version, but you have to be well behaved and not get strikes on your channel and shit in order to be able to access that feature. And Queen's not always good in these YouTube streets. Y'all know I like to piss YouTube off. So I won't be getting any access to that feature anytime soon through YouTube. But thank you,
Stay,
StreamYard.
you
They sort out the
stay,
glitches.
you stay in YouTube prison. I guess you on parole right now.
Oh, true. Now I think about it. They'll have me on the ankle monitor soon.
uh,
Oh gosh, it's funny now. I can laugh about it now. The time when those things are happening, it's like, "Argh!" But yeah, I can look back on it and laugh now. Hitting my YouTube milestones. Oh gosh. But thank you for this evening, sis. I'm glad that we was able to do this, and I'm glad that you did the presentation. And I'm gonna go off, get some rest, because it's
Yeah,
like ridiculous o'clock here. But
I'm gonna shut this down. It's 8:30. I
tomorrow
need to. I'm gonna
I
go fix
will do.
myself something to eat.
Yeah, y'all have been talking about food so much, and then Madam cooks like some fusion tikka masala type things. I'm just like, yeah, my stomach's like, y'all been riling me, and that food's in the kitchen, and you're sitting here, feed me.
So I'm gonna leave the
Oh,
stream up or whatever. Oh, also, I want to mention to anyone watching in the clouds and anyone here present, like leave a comment on this live stream so you can enter in for a chance to win the self care giveaway. I'm be giving away like some hair care, skin care, and body care products that I like. In regards to the hair care, right? I was gonna do like a leave-in conditioner, but then like I don't know, like because I forget someone was saying like they had locks, and so like if you've got like if the hair care products, I'm gonna hold off on the hair care, so then I can ask you guys like if there's a certain like hair care product that you like, I'll just purchase that for you if you win because I don't just want to throw something in there that people can't use or for their own hair type or whatever. So yeah, like this video, leave a emoji or something just so when I do pick a like put it all in so I can pick a winner, um, you'll be able to enter in for a chance to win. I'm also gonna include everyone, it's gonna be 3 winners. So each winner will get a different book off my summer reading list and like some self-care stuff because I just want to give something to my subscribers. I appreciate all of you and um, just to pass on some things that I enjoy that maybe you too could enjoy as well. So that's that on that. But yeah, I'm gonna get on off here, you guys, because low key, high key, queen. I'm about to go back to 7-Eleven because I want another Slurpee. Like I'm addicted. Like it's summertime, and
I can't say I blame you, but just stay safe out there.
yeah, like and I love a Slurpee, y'all. Like I'm a
Yeah.
Slurpee addict. Like it's probably one of my like it's one of my addictions. Like once it hits summertime, I could
Hmm.
drink. And the thing is like because I don't drink soda and I don't really buy junk food, so I kind of feel like drinking a
That's your
Slurpee is
little
not that
thing.
bad.
Yeah. There's
But
nothing
the
wrong
thing
with
is,
having your
like
own
I
thing.
only like the Coca-Cola Slurpee. Like I don't like all the other colors. And you
Hmm.
really shouldn't be drinking dark sodas because it's actually like really bad for you with the phosphates. But who am I? I'm sitting up here telling people you should as I slurp down. But I only get the small. Like I don't OD and get the big one. So that's my like justification in my own mind.
I think you can allow yourself from time to time to have a little something, something. Do you get what I mean? I
Mhm.
get that health's important, but enjoying some of the, not too bad things and occasionally having those things and just a gallon of water afterwards.
Yeah. Like where was I forgot where I was listening to you. You were talking about. I think you said you thought you were addicted to Nutter Butters or something.
You're not rage. No, it's the nutrageous. Oh
Right?
my God, what do you put in that? That stuff is sugar crack to my system. Trying to kick that? Yo. Mm-mm. Y'all got me addicted to that. Mm. And I was like a fiend the other day in Aldi. We went shopping in Aldi and it was like searching through the boxes looking for the outrageous and then I found 3 that had dropped down and I was like, 3! 3 of them! We grab our tree.
Crack me up, Queen.
It'll probably be the next month, okay, before I see anymore. So I'll just enjoy my little rations of my 3 nut rages. But yeah, it's probably a good thing at this point. I'm getting more back into my fruit and trying to up my sea moss and just trying to really pay attention and stuff like that to my health and things. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be around to see Madam continue to evolve and grow and thing and just see us continue to grow and evolve and flourish into our next part of our journey.
Congratulations on her starting, college soon.
Thank you. I can't believe it. It's just like, wow, right now. So, yeah, I've got a lot of preparation this summer because she's going 2 years earlier than I expected. So it's like,
Is she gonna live on campus?
no, not at the moment. Not
Hmm.
with the UK colleges for the most part, it's not like an in-dorm thing.
Oh.
Unless you're international or say for example, um, you're a part of aristocracy and you're like the royals and them, they'll have their certain colleges that are dormed off in certain places and parts of London and stuff like that.
It's probably
So
better off since she start going so young.
yeah, so it gives me the next how long to prepare her. And then obviously, uni and stuff like that. She might go for uni, depending on which institution she goes to. So it'll just give me some time to sort of prepare her and get her to where she needs to be. But yeah, it's a bit like, ah!
Bubba. I remember when I went off, like I remember my sister, like I didn't know because like my parents dropped me off, they were sad. But
Mm.
I remember like some years later, my sister telling me that my mom slept in my bed for like 2 weeks and just cried.
Oh.
I was like, oh wow.
This is the thing as mothers, the ones that care about their children and invest in them. We put so much into our children, and then it's kind of like an emptiness syndrome because your life has all encompassed these children for how many years. It can be a an emotional shift, and then depending on women's ages when that takes place, sometimes hormones and
Hmm.
menopause and those kind of things at the same time. But it can be an emotional roller coaster.
I was like, I was kind of shocked because I was like, mm. I don't know, because my mom she's very stoic.
Yeah, and some families and some women
Yeah.
that are like that, they don't show the sort of emotion on the outside, but certain milestones come about and it makes you re-examine your life, your children's life, the stages that they're at, their part into adulthood and stuff, and just in
Yeah.
terms of wanting them to be safe and protected, and there's all the other elements of trying to prepare y'all for the next part of the journey. It's just I'm just so proud of her. This year has been this last how many years with everything that's been going on, the pandemic, health, and just in terms of like we've had teacher strikes and everything in the midst of the kids that are over the last year that have been doing their exams.
Hmm.
So I'm so proud of her for that she hasn't had her results yet, but whatever she gets, I'm proud of her, knowing everything that she's been through. So and just getting to the next part of her journey. So she's had her acceptance letter and everything.
And she's
So
absolutely stunning, queen. Like I was baby girl is she fine.
now you see why I'm having to be on the bus looking at these
like
dudes
like
sideways and saying, "Do you want to go to jail?"
like now like
Because
all of everything you say makes absolute sense because baby girl is fine.
okay, I will go to prison. Okay, don't play with me. For those who know that girl, my daughter is beautiful, and I'm not just saying that, but she
No,
just
you're
doesn't
not.
realize how
She's
beautiful she is.
legitimately
She's
like
model esque, but
yeah,
it's just like
she's
but she's very very humble and she doesn't even realize how beautiful she is. But I this is why me and these men on the street keep getting catch up over this pitney. Okay, I will go to prison with a smile on my what you call it, picture, intake picture. Don't play with me. So yeah,
mm,
so she's in her bed resting now, slumbering away. But yeah, I'm gonna go and enjoy this food that she's cooked and see what it's saying because it was smelling up the place. And Mr. Maka said, Lord of mercy. Like,
yeah,
let's throw down.
yeah. I guess motherhood is. I don't have any children, but like, I was. It was funny because I was reading this post on, I think it was on Instagram, and it was just like how motherhood is a journey that like never ends. And
Mm-hmm.
then all these people were talking about like, oh, like how they don't give their mother any space. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, that's so true. Cause even in my 30s, like when I'm home, I'll bust right in on my mama in the bathroom and start talking to her. Like, and she'll be like, get out of here. And I'm like, and then she'll tell me to leave. And I'll sit outside the door and talk to her. And she's like, if you don't get,
Yep,
I
many
still
a
like, and it's
time.
funny because she was like, you and your sister, like, why y'all are adults? Why are y'all busting in the bathroom on me? I'm like, I don't
Oh.
care. You my mama. Like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
sit right here and talk to you.
Many a time in the shower having a really good time, and then madam comes in and blows up the bathroom, and it's like, yeah, thank you very much. I really needed that while I'm having my what do you call it, evanescence moment in the middle of the forest, thinking of me in alpine trees and shit with waterfalls. Yeah, it's
My
twenty
mom
four
used
seven.
she be so mad. Like, I'm like, what do you mean? I'm your child. Like, just
Mm.
because I'm in my 30s don't mean I'm not gonna that you go get any privacy. Like,
And
if you
this is
wanted
the thing.
privacy, you shouldn't have had children, lady.
This is the thing. I might need to talk to Mama Coco about setting some boundaries, standards, and expectations for her part of this journey moving forward. But yeah, it evolves. Our journey as parent, it evolves from stage to stage because it's going from that parental involvement to coaching to managing, and even when you've got grown children, they're still going to go through things and evolve with things. There's even things, I'm not perfect, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I'm still evolving. Each level of her journey and milestone that she reaches is another milestone in my parenting journey.
Hmm.
Do you get what I'm saying? And just the highs and lows, don't get me wrong, it's the toughest job in the world, but there's a I don't want to say it's rewarding, but there is like that element of it in different ways in terms of the connection, the bond, um, being a part of that journey, having that level of responsibility and watching this child flourish or grow through these different things. It's not easy, but I do think in moving forward as a community, for women that really want that part of the journey, you know, there's the element of saying that nothing can prepare you for it, but at the same time, which I get, there's a bit of contradiction and hypocrisy because there's a lot of things that you may learn, but it's putting them into practice, and then every child is different, you know. They have different personalities, things that you read in textbooks and learn from people. Some may not work, and you have to try different things and see what suits. And like I said, I've done a lot of unlearning of things that I was brought up with. So it's been a weird and interesting journey. But I suppose when Madam is 30, I'll ask her how she feels about it. Do you get what I mean? Looking back. But at the same time, because she's my only child, she's more so, I suppose, more so when it comes to the first children that are born, we tend to be the ones that are experimented on because that's the first child, that's the first parenting responsibility that you've had. And even though you might have had that as a sibling, it's different when you full bear that responsibility and that child is coming out of your body,
Hmm.
and that kind of everything else that kind of goes with it. It gives you a different level of understanding when it comes to your parents and their humanity. When you really look back on things when you've been on this planet for a period of time. Do you
Yeah.
get what I'm saying? So me and my parents are at a different place now. We've been able to have certain conversations. Do you get what I mean? And challenging certain things that happened. At the same time, understanding their complexities. So I can only hope the things that I've tried to implant in this generation in Madam, time will tell. But the thing is, if we don't try, we won't know. Do you get what I'm saying? And trying to break these quote unquote generational curses and reparenting ourselves and trying to implant plant, healthier ways of being and doing and things that, better represent us as Black women.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So good night, ladies, and good night, ladies in the
Jump over
chat.
here.
Have a wonderful weekend, and y'all will see me tomorrow for the meditation, okay, and
I'll be
relaxation
there.
stream.
I'll be there after I go get my my chicken and waffles. As soon as I wake up, I'm going straight. I'm getting dressed and I'm going straight to Central Park. Like I'm having chicken and waffles for breakfast.
Mhm. All right, me done. Me gone. Good night, everybody. Enjoy, Coco. Thanks for
Um,
having me.
I appreciate everyone for coming. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their evening and stay safe. And thanks. So I'll see you guys soon. Hopefully, I'll be uploading some drills. I feel like I'm in a space now where I can get back to that because like I just didn't want to make that, like, to be honest, I just wasn't in the mood to like create that sort of content because I just didn't want to like go on TikTok and have to like search for all of that stuff. I just wasn't mentally, it was too taxing. But um I feel like I'm good now and I'm ready to drill. So we'll be back to dragging Black men by their unconnected struggle beards and receding hairlines very soon, you ladies. I love all of you guys. Have a good night. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.